Blog Talk Radio.
Michemo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut Neye Ujirada Medinde Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi Odwirafo. That means greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut people, meaning Africans, Black people. Today is Odwira Day, Purification Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan, Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show once again. We are going to put some links in the chat room right quick for the information that we will be going over. For the individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. On Monday nights, Joda, we have Akhan for Nanasom, Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion. We deal specifically with the Akhan expression of Nanasom, the Akhan expression of ancestral religion from an authentic perspective, ancient authentic perspective, dealing with our ancestral culture going all the way back to ancient Khanat, a title of ancient Nubia. We migrated and began in ancient Khanat, then migrated from Khanat, the Nubia region, up north. Some of us settled ancient Kemet. Some of our people a couple of thousand years ago migrated from Khanat to the western part of the continent after the invasions of the Assyrians and Persians and so forth, and reestablished ourselves in the western part of the continent and reestablished ancient Khanat, the Khanat land, the first land, the foremost land. That is the empire of Khanat or Ghana. We established our civilization once again. About 1,000 years later, because of invasions, Muslim invasions and so forth, brainwashed blacks who embraced the whites in their offspring, corrupted themselves and their culture. Because of invasion, some of our people migrated from the empire of Khanat or Ghana further south towards the forest belt and reestablished ourselves in the forest belt in today's contemporary regions of Ghana and Ivory Coast. And we reestablished Khanat or Akhana civilization in those regions. A few hundred years after that, some of our people were taken from those regions into the Western Hemisphere during the Musuo Kesie, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era. And this is how Akhana or Akhan people were forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the enslavement era. Of course, our people who maintained their ancestral culture, we waged war against the whites and their offspring. We were empowered and guided by the Abosom and Nananom Nsamanfo, the deities, and our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors. And we waged war against the whites and their offspring and were successful in defeating the whites and their offspring and brought the end to the enslavement process that took place in North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean. So we talk about that historical migration, but it's also a cultural and spiritual migration because we carried our ancestral religious practices with us. You'll find the Akhan people in Suriname, for example, continue to practice Akhan ancestral religion. It's called Winti in Suriname. You'll find that Akhan people continue to practice the Akhan ancestral religious practices, traditions. In Jamaica, for example, it is popularly referred to as Obia in Jamaica from Obayi, which is an Akhan term which we dealt with and we're going to deal with tonight. But Akhan people, of course, in North America brought our traditions in the form of what is popularly called hoodoo. So the hoodoo religion was brought directly from West Afuraitkai by Akhan people. The term hoodoo comes from the Akhan term undu, which means medicine. Undu also means conjure, possession, and so forth. So specifically, the kind of medicine is medicine from trees, plants, roots, and so forth. It's root medicine. The undu people and the Uduyefo and Udun Sinfo or Udun Sinifo are literally the root doctors, root workers, conjurers and so forth. That is an Akhan culture. When we came to the Western Hemisphere, we continued to call ourselves the hoodoo or Undu people. The hoodoo man and hoodoo woman comes from the Uduma people, Udumanfo, which is also the root worker, root doctor, conjurer, and so forth. So we brought the Akhan religion intact, and it is popularly called hoodoo in North America. Later on, that term hoodoo was used just in general to talk about Afuraitkaitnut, the ancestral religion in general. Just like the term Vodou, which actually comes from the Fon and Ebe people who West Afuraitkaitnut reside primarily in Benin and in Togo and parts of Ghana and so forth. They brought Vodou with them when they were forced into this hemisphere. Later on, the term Vodou began to be used just in general for anything associated with ancestral religion, even given negative connotations by the white Nile Spring, but in reality, Vodou means deity. But it was the Fon and Ebe people who brought Vodou to the Western Hemisphere. The Yoruba people brought the Orisha, the term Orisha, and so forth to the Western Hemisphere. Akhan people brought hoodoo to the Western Hemisphere into North America. So we deal with that on Akanto Nanasom Day on Joda Monday, and we deal with proper conceptualizations and understandings of the nature and function of the Supreme Being, Nyamewa and Nyame, the Creator and Creatress, who are grandchildren of the Supreme Being, Nyokumpon and the Yonkumton. We deal with the nature of the Abosom, the nature of the Nananom, Nsamanfo, the deities and spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors, the nature of the Kra and Krawa, the soul, divine consciousness, and so forth. And we go into a lot of detail, bringing clarity to these concepts and these realities. Because there's not only misinformation in the Western Hemisphere, but also from the continent, where individuals who have been infected with Islam and Christianity and white culture in general for hundreds of years, sometimes up to 1,000 years. Many of them have brought those infections into their practice of the culture. And when people connect with them and believe that they are connecting with someone who are transmitting an untainted culture that is over 1,000+ years old, in reality, very often they're transmitting 1,000+ year infected culture. So the cosmology and the concepts and foolishness like monotheism and everything else is transmitted as though it's authentic, which it is not. So we deal with ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion on Joda on Monday night. On Awukuda Wednesday night, Akuada, we deal with Egua Marketplace. We have individuals and individuals who have started institutions, businesses, organizations that are serving the Afuraitkaitnut community in a positive capacity, but also maintaining our ancestral religious values in the process. So we've had a number of individuals come on to the show, talk about their business, their institution, their organization, how they're serving community, how their ancestral religious values inform their service to the community. In the process, we have published the Akhan Economic Development Model, an economic development model rooted in ancestral religious values. Therefore, it's a holistic approach to economic development rooted in our culture. You can go to the Akhan Economic Development page and download that document. We will put the link to the Akhan Economic Development page right here in the chat room. By the way, for those who are in the chat room, if you want to interact, you must log in with the username. If you are on the phone lines and you have a question or a comment, you would just hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. So the Akhan Economic Development Model, you go to that page, you can download that model. You can also download the 4-part series we did on Blog Talk regarding that model, dissecting the model, showing its various applications to various and every aspect of our lives as a community. We also have the broadcast Ekuakundi, talking about economic warfare. We also have the broadcast Kwadefo Ne Amamre, dealing with employment and ancestral culture. You can download those broadcasts on that page as well as the Akhan Economic Development Model. You can also see the list of businesses, organizations, and institutions that we have been supporting on a weekly basis. Part of the Akhan Economic Development Model is the strategy that we utilize to starve the beast and feed the pride. So what that means is we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We take those funds away from those white businesses and redirect them, reallocate them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. We are targeting one business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks, and we have been in this process since the beginning of February. So when you look on the Oklahoma Economic Development page, you'll see the various businesses, the list of all those various businesses that we have been supporting as a community. You'll see their websites. You can go directly to their website. You'll also see a link to the interview that they did with us on the Egwa Marketplace show. And they sat with us for 2 hours, talked about their business, organization, institution, true story, their journey to establishing their work in the community, and also how their ancestral religious values inform their service to the community. So you can download those interviews, you can go to their website, and you can also see the business of the week. So we're targeting one business, organization, or institution per week. We starve the beast and feed the pride, take those funds you would have spent at McDonald's, the funds you would have spent at Walmart, the funds you would have spent at CVS. You take that $5 or $10 or $15 that you would have spent and starve that white beast and reallocate them to feed the pride, feed the business of the week, organization of the week, the institution of the week. Then if you do that in concert with 1,000 of us, then that $5, $10, or $15 that you reallocated times 1,000 is $5, $10, or $15,000 of capital infused into a black business in the course of 1 week. They will therefore be able to keep their business open, expand their products and services to us, hire within the community to serve us at a greater capacity while also assisting people in the community with employment and a solid, grounded, important business endeavor in the community. It's a win-win situation. If we do not participate in such a process, then we are by default leaving our funds in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. By default, we are therefore financing our own oppression. So we need to reallocate those funds. The $1 trillion+ we spend as a community, and spending 95+% of that with our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. We need to take that $950 billion+ that we waste with them and spend the majority of that in our community. All we have to do simply is to reallocate. As they say, there are about 2 million black businesses in the United States. There are about 2 million black people unemployed in the United States. Every business hired one person. Our unemployment problem will be solved overnight. In order to do so, we must reallocate the funds, the billions that we give to white Europeans, white Americans, white Asians, white Hindus, white Arabs, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hispanics, white Latinos, and so forth, in their businesses, starve that beast and feed the pride. Send those funds to the black businesses so that they can expand, they become more profitable, they can hire that extra person, that extra 2 people, that extra 10 people, that extra 100 people. This is what we need to engage in. So that's on Wednesday's Egwa Marketplace. Of course, today is Benada Abenada. This is Ojira Purification Day. Jira means to purify. Jira means a celebration of purification in the Akhan language. However, that term is derived directly from our ancestral Akhan or Kanat language of ancient Kanat, Nubia, as well as Kemet. When you look into Medutu, the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet, and we have posted those Medutu, those hieroglyphs, what you will find is that the term in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphs, Jira means purification. Jira means a celebration of purification. The same term, the same concept. And of course, that celebration of purification, Ojira, is in the Akhan tradition. That is the title of the New Year's celebration for millions of Akhan folk. So, for example, coming up beginning next week, as a matter of fact, from September 17th to September 23rd. That is our 7-day Odwirafo Nananom Som, our specific form of the Ojira for Akhan New Year observance. We celebrate every year for 7 days between September 17th and 23rd, or September 16th to the 22nd, depending upon the year. The last day of the 7-day celebration is the first full day of the Atimet, the autumn equinox, and that is our New Year's Day. So this year will be September 23rd, will be our New Year's Day. That will be our first day of 13,016, 3 months prior to the beginning of the European New Year, where they say Happy New Year in the midst, January 1st, in the midst of the deepest, darkest, coldest time and night of the year. That's when cave dwellers was from the mountains of ice will scream out Happy New Year when it's the darkest time of the year, the coldest time of the year, the darkest time of the 24-hour cycle, the coldest time of that cycle. Glacial cave dwellers will come out and scream Happy New Year. That's not what happens with us. So we take stock of the movement of the Aten, the sun, the effect upon the earth. In the fall season, that's the end of one cycle, the warm cycle. That's the harvesting time, but it's also the seeding time. It's the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. So this is why we have Ojira, purification, at that particular time. And we're going to talk more about that next week, as a matter of fact. When we talk about Jira being purification, Jira means the celebration of purification in ancient Kanat and Kemet, in the language, due to the hieroglyphs and so forth, and it still means Jira, purification in Akhan, and Ojira, a celebration of purification. We know what that celebration is, because this is the living culture that has been unbroken intergenerationally and transcarnationally for thousands of years up until this very moment. When we talk about Ojira purification, we always say Ojira purification operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes Afuraitkaitnut, ancestral religion. When we talk about Nanasom, which is a general term for Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion, we talk about the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That is the essence of ancestral religion, no matter what form it takes. Akhan, Yoruba, Ebe, Fon, Igbo, Basa, Fula, Hoodoo, Juju, Vodou, and so forth. The ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance. Through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject, that we need to repel, to hate, to repulse, in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and to restore balance to our lives. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion, like breathing, expansion and contraction. Purification operationalizes that process. When we purify ourselves, then we can engage the ritual process of incorporating law and restoring balance. So this is why we say Ojira operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes Afuraitkaitnut, ancestral religion. So this is part 2 of our 2-part series on Abayisem, which is an Akhan term that is often misnomered with a negative connotation of witchcraft. We talked about in the first part of this broadcast, Bayi, the term Bayi in Akhan culture, dealing with that higher psychic power. We noticed the differences in energy output. The highest level of energy output is divine spiritual power directly dispensed from Nyamewa, Nyame, through the agency of Nyokumpon and Yonkunton, which is Ra, and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, the divine living energy operating through all created entities, plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afuraitkaitnut, human life specifically and only. So that divine spiritual power of Ra and Ra'et that they give to us, a portion of the creative power that created the universe, a portion of that divine living creative power is placed within Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people. That is our spiritual power. That is the Tumi, the power, the divine living energy that's placed within us. On a secondary level, and that's directly dispensed from Ra and Rayat, Yonkumpon and the Yonkunton. But then you also have the Bayi, the higher psychic power that is also dispensed from the Abosom through our blood circle. The Abosom that govern us, the forces in nature that govern us specifically. And they dispense that higher psychic power to us, the capacity to see beyond the physical, clairvoyance, see beyond or hear beyond the physical, clairaudience, taste beyond the physical, clairgustance, and smell beyond the physical, clairalien, feel beyond the physical, clairsentient, experience balance beyond the physical, clairequilibrium, and experience the time continuum beyond the physical, dealing with the deities and ancestral spirits and so forth, clairtimians, as we call it, these 7 spiritual senses in connection with the Abosom, the forces in nature, the divinity, divine organs within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, that higher psychic power. Then you have a lower level psychic power. That lower level psychic power is no different than electromagnetic energy, is no different than the magnetism you see between 2 magnets on a table, the unseen force of repulsion and attraction. When you place 2 magnets together and they jump together or they repel one another, when you place the light polarities together, that lower level electromagnetic energy, that is a lower level psychic power. It is not directly connected to a divine dispensation from the Abosom, the forces in nature who infuse you with divine power. So therefore, when you have 2 magnets pushing each other across the table, that's not the operation of the deity moving the magnets around. That is lower level psychic power, residual energy coming from plant life, animal life, mineral life, and in that case, mineral life and so forth. So we have that lower level electromagnetic energy, a lower level psychic power. We also have a higher psychic power that's connected directly to the Abosom. And then we have divine spiritual power, which is the energy coming from the divinity. The whites in our spring do not have spiritual power because they have no connection to the forces in nature. They cannot be possessed by the forces in nature. Forces in nature do not communicate with them. We call the forces in nature Abosom and Akhan, Orisha in Yoruba, Vodou in the Fon and Ewe traditions and so forth, Arusi and Igbo, the children of the Supreme Being, the Great Mother and Great Father. The Supreme Being, Nyamewa, Nyame as we call them in Akhan, Amenet and Amen, the Great Mother and Great Father, Nature Kemet and Kanat, Mawu and Lisa and so forth, Komosu and Chukwu and Igbo, Mawu and Lisa and Vodun, Olokun and Olorun in the Yoruba tradition. The Great Mother and Great Father, their great divine body has a number of organs. Those organs that regulate order within the great divine body are the deity. They are the children, grandchildren of the Supreme Being. And then the organs have cells, which are children of the organs. And those cells are plant life, animal life, mineral life, and Afuraitkaitnut, human life. Just as your cells serve their parent organ, they're serving the whole body at the same time. We as cells or children of the Abosom, of the Orisha, of the Vodou, of the Arusi, we serve our parent organ, the divinity that governs us individually, that governs our head and our patriclan and matriclan, then we're serving the great divine body of the Supreme Being at the same time. So, that divine energy, the energy just like the organs in your body feed energy to their cells. The divinities that we are children of feed energy directly to us. That is a dispensation of energy coming from the great divine body through the agency of the organ directly to the cell. So the energy flowing through the body, flowing through the organ and to the cell, that is that divine living energy. But then you have lower level electromagnetic energy. The whites in the offspring have lower level electromagnetic energy, no different than a magnet. Magnetism is unseen, so they can communicate with their deceased, criminal, spiritually decrepit relative unseen. But they cannot communicate with the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, the Nananum Nsamafo of Afuraitkaitnut. Only people on earth who have spiritually cultivated or honored ancestresses and ancestors are our people, of course. What makes an ancestral spirit honorable or spiritually cultivated or venerated is that they lived in harmony with divine order consistently, lived in harmony with their krawa, their soul, their divine consciousness, lived in harmony with the forces in nature, lived in harmony with the Supreme Being consistently, and they were in alignment with them consistently. And therefore, when they made their transition, they were ancestresses and ancestors were given an increase in power and responsibility because they lived in harmony consistently with divine order. The whites and their offspring are spirits of disorder. They have no capacity to live in harmony with divine order. So they cannot produce spiritually cultivated elders or elderesses, nor can they produce spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. They incarnate as spirits of disorder. So they have no access to the forces of nature. Therefore, they have no access to the divine power dispensed by Ra and Ra'et, Yonkumpon and Yonkunton, Odumare and Oshimare, Da and Ido Kwedo, and so forth. And they have no access to the higher psychic power, the Bayi, as it's called in Akhan, the Ajay, as it's called in Yoruba, and so forth. So all they have is lower level psychic power, and we dealt with that in detail, showing that there are differences, and we delineated the differences in part 1. So we know there are clear distinctions, clear delineation between lower level criminal, discarnate, wayward spirits who have no connection because they are repulsive to the forces of nature, to the embodiments of divine order, because they operate out of harmony with order and they have no connection, and therefore they cannot receive divine power. So those lower level entities, those are the ones that are no different than viruses in your body, bacteria in your body. They are cells and they operate, but they're operating out of harmony with the body. And of course, your immune system takes care of those cells by isolating them and killing them and expelling them from the body. You have viral entities, discarnate relatives and non-relatives who become like non-friendly bacteria, non-friendly flora and fauna within the body that are isolated and eradicated. So this is what the whites and our offspring are. So we delineated that. And we also have people in our community who get out of harmony with order. They reject their divine function, reject their kra, their soul, their divine consciousness, their krawa, and then they degenerate into such parasitic entities in life, criminal types, murderers, rapists, and so forth. And when they make their transition, they're still spirits of disorder. We also have people who can fall into disorder, not because of criminality in our community, but because of depression, anxiety, ignorance, suffering, and so forth, being wounded and going through a great deal of trauma. And when they make their transition, they're still engaged in that kind of lower level, weakened state. This is what we want to get to tonight. Because when we talk about Abayisem, talking about the so-called witchcraft and overcoming its negative effects through ritual. Majority of non-physical, quote-unquote, illness. In Akhan culture, Sum Yadie, spiritual illness is different from Honam Yadie, which is physical illness. You can have a physical illness, you eat some food or drink something or get poisoned or the air is polluted and so forth. You come down with the illness, you check the blood, there's something going on, or there's some bacteria and so forth. You take some herb, take some purgatives, take what you need to take to boost your immune system, get rid of that virus, get rid of that bacteria, get rid of that pollution, those toxins and so forth, and take care of that physical illness, that honam yade, or honam yadie. But sometimes when a person has an illness, it's not purely physical. It's a sun yadie, spiritual illness. And when there's a spiritual illness being brought on either by the person having a disorder within their own spirit, because they're disaligned from their kra, become disaligned from their kra, they become self-destructive, they begin to implode to a certain extent, just like somebody eating some foods they shouldn't be eating, and all of a sudden they start suffering internally. But then you could also have someone eating some food and getting sick because someone poisoned the food deliberately, and the person wasn't aware and they ate the food and they became sick in that case. Spiritually, you can be disaligned from your kra because you're going against divine order. And then you create disorder within yourself. But then you can also have an outside agency, an outside entity who's deliberately projecting negativity, just like physically someone can inject chemicals into the food, genetically modified organisms, for example, physically injected into the food. And then once you get the food and you eat that food, then you become polluted as well. In the same fashion, spiritually, a discarnate entity can project negativity, attack, influence, push, pull, and so forth, push on someone's spirit and so forth, create pressure on someone, just like two magnets pushing across the table. Once the magnet, one of the magnets goes up against the wall and the other one is still pushing towards it, it's putting pressure. That electromagnetic pressure is pushing that physical entity across the table. The unseen force is pushing against the seen force. In the same fashion, the unseen force, the lower level electromagnetic energy of a discarnate spirit is pushing against you, your physical body. First, you can pick up on it. Your electromagnetic field, your magnetosphere, your kahibit, your aura can pick up on that pressure. When somebody is deliberately projecting negative energy on you or coming towards you or trying to possess or grab or push and pull and so forth, they're pushing on your organs, pushing on a woman's organs to make her have a miscarriage, putting pressure on the head of the person, and they feel like someone is grabbing their head, and it's beyond just regular migraine, beyond just something that they're eating wrong and so forth. The pressure is being placed upon the person, putting pressure on the nervous system of the person, putting pressure on their heart and so forth, putting pressure on their stomach, pressure around the neck, different kinds of things. This, of course, can take place, and many people have experienced that. So, we were talking about these discarnate entities, putting that kind of pressure, trying to influence as well as going to other individuals and whispering in their ears, trying to influence their behavior, influence their thoughts, entering their dream state and so forth, whether they're dreaming at night or daydreaming and so forth. People are a little bit receptive, distracting people while they're driving, and one slight distraction makes the person take their eye off the wheel, and then they have a car crash and things like that, accidents, number of different things happening, people making bad decisions with regard to finances, bad decisions with regard to relationships, bad decisions with regard to their interaction with other individuals or entities, having negative thoughts, suicidal thoughts, thoughts of anxiety and so forth. All these kinds of things can come from lower level criminal type entities, just like when they were alive. You have some people who would try to influence people they think who are weaker than them, speaking to them in a certain way or trying to talk them into something, or sometimes putting physical pressure and threatening and intimidating some people. Sometimes drugging people. And once they drug the people, then they try to influence the way they think and act, intimidate them as well, just like people do that physically. And we see that all the time, whether it's in negative relationships or in other ways. When such individuals make their transition, they seek to do the same thing as well. If we are not receptive, if we're not responsible and don't take responsibility for ourselves, then we will assume those thoughts, those negative projections, those dreams, those desires, those influences might be coming from us, and we're wondering what's wrong with us, why are we thinking like this, or maybe this is just who we are, so we need to move in this direction. You know, these negative pushes towards someone of the same sex, because some perverse entity is trying to push us in that direction, and then we're walking around saying, why am I feeling drawn to the same sex? It's a discarnate pervert trying to push you in that direction. If you're a child like that, then you walk around thinking that you're a homo, that you're a dissection. And then the crackers at the school, and the crackers at the church, and the crackers in the larger society and brainwashed Negroes are saying, well, if that's how you feel, then that's who you really are, and you need to pursue that. And then once somebody engages in that practice, then they really feel like it's no turning back, and they're depressed and anxious and doing drugs and drinking alcohol and coming up with all kinds of defense mechanisms, all because some discarnate spirit was pushing on them. Same thing with people who engage in all kinds of other criminality. Sometimes you have this sum yadier spiritual illness. Its provenance is the nature of some discarnate wayward spirit. This is that lower level psychic energy, that lower level psychic energy being projected by a criminal individual, discarnate criminal individual. the vast majority of the problems that people have spiritually when they are actually experiencing so-called witchcraft in the real sense, not something that their own conditionings and anxieties that they're projecting as, well, I'm being attacked, when they're really not. They're just being irresponsible. But we're talking about when people are really being pressured, it's coming from these lower level negative entities. The Abosom, the forces in nature, the Vodou, do not engage in criminality ever. They will never engage in projecting negativity on a person, leading them towards disorder to teach them a lesson. That does not happen. Negroes who try to say, for example, that Kwekwanansi or Eshu, Legba is trying to push you into negative behavior to teach you a lesson. He does not push people into negative behavior. Never has and never will. If you try to rationalize disorder, the first entity you come in contact with, when you're trying to rationalize and intellectualize and conscript the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou to co-sign disorder, the first entity you come in contact with is the messenger. Ahuku Anansi, Kweku Anansi, or Eshu Legba, and he projects that foolishness that you try to project out to the Supreme Being or up to the Supreme Being. He catches it and returns it right back to you. And if you receive that return and try to identify it or define it as the blessings of the Abosom, then you will move forward acting on the pseudo blessings of the Abosom, and the endeavor that you're engaged in will blow up in your face and you will suffer. And then you will try to say that Eshu led you into disorder, or Awuku Anansi led you into disorder. That is nonsense. So we say that as an example. No Abosom, no Orisha, no Vodou, no Nananum Nsamampo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors will ever or have ever or can ever lead you into any form of disorder. It is against their nature. So when you have any form of entity acting on their own or under the guidance of some ritualist, some specialist, some criminal spiritualist and so forth, pseudo-spiritualist, then you have a discarnate spirit, a spirit of disorder, a weak, disaligned spirit that's operating. That is the basis of the vast majority, 99+% of the so-called witchcraft that's being projected upon these discarnate, wayward spirits operating on their own volition or under the direction of some pseudo-spirit. Now, how do we deal with that ritually? We're going to go to our Ptah SASETEM. We'll put the link in the chat room right quick. So the section that we are going to go to in the Ptah SASETEM, the Ptah SASETEM, number one, is an educational curriculum. It's a 7-module educational curriculum introducing our people to ancestral culture, but it also has other applications. We're going to show how one of the modules has another application, dealing specifically with what we're talking about tonight, overcoming the negative effects of so-called witchcraft through ritual. But first and foremost, we must understand ASASETEM, or responsibility, because without understanding that, then you're not going to overcome anything. At best, you're going to put a Band-Aid on something. It's very similar to eating the wrong food and then setting yourself up for a compromised immune system. When your immune system becomes compromised, then the bacteria that normally will bounce right off of you and be repelled by your immune system because your immune system is compromised, then that kind of bacteria can infiltrate and get in and take you down. The next thing you know, you're bedridden. But when you build your immunity back up and get back to normal and take responsibility for your health, then you begin to repel that kind of weak bacteria that typically wouldn't have that kind of influence over you. In the same fashion, we must understand ASASETEM, responsibility, in this regard. Because if we want to overcome the effects of witchcraft on a thorough, holistic level, a comprehensive approach, then it's not just a Band-Aid approach, where somebody does something to you and gives you, poisons you, so to speak, and then just like physically, you eat some food, there's some toxins in the food, then you go to a doctor, they give you a prescription for some pharmaceutical medication, some more negative chemicals, you take those chemicals, put them in your system, which are really not good for your system, fight against the other chemicals that were originally placed in your system, made you sick, and those negative chemicals, negative to your body, fight it out within your body. The pharmaceutical medication, those chemicals went out and overpower the other, chemicals. Then they destroy those, but then you still have a residual of unnatural chemicals in your system. In the same fashion, and that's a Band-Aid because you still haven't dealt with the issue. How did you get to the point where your immunity was compromised to the extent that you were able to succumb to these bacteria? You want to deal with the causes, deal with the roots, and that goes back to ascetiae responsibility. So we're going to deal with that, and then we talk about this ritual aspect of dealing with these discarnate entities, repelling their energy through dealing directly with your first line of defense, which is your nananum nsamanfo, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. Dealing with them comprehensively. And then, of course, your own Kra, your personal divinity, your Krawa, the deity assigned to dwell with you in your head region throughout the course of your life by the Supreme Being. Or we incarnate into the world, we, as Afuraitkaitnut people only, we go before Nyamewa, Nyame, Amen, Amen. We are assigned a divinity to dwell in our head region. That divinity takes up a residence in the head region and guides us throughout the course of our lives. When we align with that force in nature, we also align with the energy complex associated with that force in nature, as well as our patriclan and matriclan divinities that govern our people. And we have access to that energy, and we can wield that energy to repel negative entities and keep ourselves in alignment with order. So that's part of that process as well. But first, we're going to deal with ascetiae responsibility, which is foundation. Before you can even get to dealing with the nsamanfo, you need to deal with ascetiae responsibility. So the ascetiae section of the Ptah SASETEM educational curriculum. And of course, we have this book. This is one of our 16 books that we have published to date. We have more books coming out very soon. The ascetiae book. Also, we have a 2-hour plus hour training video. This is a educational curriculum that can be implemented in 7 sessions of 40 minutes each for youth as well as adults. So this is just one of the modules. And that is on page 30 of the book, Ptah SASETEM. So let's go through. There are 7 principal values of ascetiae, which is the Akhan term for responsibility. Adai, which is sleep or regeneration. Ndrian, which is diet. Akwamu is strength, power, health, talking about exercise. Susun, which is meditation or study, focused observation. Tree, which means to refine. Of course, that's also the name of the language, the refined language tree. Bo means to make or to build, and chere means to explain. So let's go through this 7-part definition of ascetiae responsibility. These 7 aspects of responsibility are connected to the Abayisem of the 7 days of the week, the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that in a 7-day cycle govern the 7-day week. The forces in nature that animate the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies give their energy to each one of the days. This is why in our Khan culture we have names associated with the days of the week upon which we are born, because we are born under the agency of the divinity that animates the solar, lunar, and planetary body that governs that day. And therefore, we come into the world to carry that energy into the world. That 7-day cycle is a holistic cycle affecting the natural cycles of the planet. So we have a 7-part definition of responsibility. Each one of the 7 parts of that definition connected to the Abayisem who govern all natural cycles on Earth. So therefore, they give their contribution to this 7-part definition of ascetiae responsibility. It is therefore a holistic definition of responsibility, rooted in the forces in nature that govern responsibility, govern this process. So, this is what we say. Page 31. We'll clarify as we go along. Ascetiae is a term from the tree language, the Akhan language, which is defined as responsibility. Every Afuraitkaitnut individual has an Nkrabia, meaning a function, a divine function, and an Okra, okrawa, a soul, full potential of the individual. We just talked about that. This potential must be actualized in order for the individual to properly execute his or her function in the world. It is therefore incumbent upon us to actualize our potential. We have a divine responsibility and obligation to cultivate, to develop ourselves physically and spiritually in order to realize our potential and then exercise our cultivated power and consciousness to exercise our divine function. We are naturally drawn to cultivate our talents, our energy, our intelligence in order to function properly in the world, just as a lion is naturally drawn to cultivate itself in order to function properly in the world. But before we even go there, when we're talking about coming into the world, we have a divine function, just like every cell in your body has a divine function. Your heart cells are designed to execute and support heart function. Your liver cells are designed to execute liver function and support liver function. Spleen cells are designed to execute and support spleen function. So when they execute their naturally allotted function in the body, then and serving their parent organ, they're serving the body at the same time. Each one of us is Afuraitkaitnut people. We are designed to execute a specific function within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, and the deity that governs us gives us the specific kind of energy we need to execute that function. That is a divine responsibility. It is an obligation to actualize our potential so we can function within the great divine body. When we get outside of that, then we suffer. So that's just talking about why we come into the world. We have a function, the nature of our function, and this is what we are to do. At the same time, however, the same module applies to what we're talking about with regard to overcoming the negative effects of so-called witchcraft. When we talk about this potential must be actualized, our full potential must be actualized in order for the individual to properly execute his or her function in the world. It is therefore incumbent upon us to actualize our potential. We have a divine responsibility and obligation to cultivate, to develop ourselves physically and spiritually. If we don't adhere to that divine obligation, and we do not cultivate ourselves physically and spiritually, we set ourselves up not only to not execute our function and become, idle and self-destructive and wasting our lives on earth and so forth. Not only that, like somebody becoming an alcoholic or somebody becoming a drug addict or somebody just becoming lustful and wasting their lives, addicted to pornography or some kind of nonsense like that. Yes, somebody wasting their lives until they make their transition. You can waste your life like that because you didn't actualize your potential. You did not adhere to your divine obligation. But in addition to that, another ramification of not adhering to your divine obligation is that you don't fully actualize your potential. You do not fully develop yourself physically and spiritually and maintain that cultivation. So therefore, you make yourself and set yourself up to succumb to and make yourself open the negative projections of individuals who would seek to do you harm. Just like going outside after you take a shower, pores are open, you run outside and it's cold outside, you set yourself up to compromise your immune system. And once the immune system is compromised because you were not cultivating yourself properly, then that's when the bacteria can get in. So this is the other side of this SASETEM module, this responsibility module. So on one hand, it's talking about actualizing your full potential just in general, so you can function in the world harmoniously. So you won't become, weak and degenerate. But on the other hand, the other ramification, as we said, if you do not do that, you don't adhere to that divine obligation, then you set yourself up to compromise your spiritual immunity and set yourself up for yade spiritual illness. So then we give the example, we're naturally drawn to cultivate ourselves, our talents, energy, our intelligence in order to function properly in the world, just as a lion is naturally drawn to cultivate itself in order to properly in the world. Upon waking from a required amount of sleep, a lion can be observed stretching, toning, tuning itself, cleaning itself, and eventually consuming food necessary for its proper nourishment. The lion observes, meditates, studies the movements of animals which will become its prey, as well as observing its own offspring in order to protect the young lions and lionesses from other animals who may be of danger to them. While developing into maturity, the lion refines its hunting technique as well as its fighting technique, because the lion and lioness have the instinctive urge to cultivate their potential, to feed themselves and their offspring, and protect themselves and their offspring. The building and expansion of their community occurs because of that natural inclination to develop and protect and so forth. As the offspring begin to grow and develop, the lion and lioness can be found showing the young lions and lionesses how to clean themselves, how to hunt, how to protect, and so forth. These acts of responsibility on the part of the lion and lioness are representative of the reality that they have a natural urge, that is the Nkrabia, the divine function, which manifests as a natural urge, a natural propensity, a natural inclination. They have a natural urge to operate in a certain manner in the world. In order to do so, they are instinctively drawn to cultivate their latent abilities. This is a manifestation of intelligence. Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut have an inherent responsibility rooted in our Akrawa, our soul, our divine consciousness, the divinity in our head region, and in our Nkrabia, that divine function that's coded within our soul, to cultivate that responsibility, to cultivate our latent abilities in order to realize our potential to harmonize every thought, intention, and action with divine order. Whatever role we are designed to or designated to fulfill in creation comes with a unique set of responsibilities. When we refuse to cultivate ourselves physically and spiritually, we create imbalance in our lives. Disorder, stagnation, depression, disease, even death can result from the neglect of our responsibility to fully cultivate and develop ourselves and our abilities. That's in general. So disorder, stagnation, depression, disease, even death, when you abdicate your role. But then the ramifications for what we're talking about is, at the same time, when you abdicate your role, you don't engage in that cultivation process on a consistent basis, that disorder also opens you up, again, to spiritual immunity being compromised, and now you set yourself up to be attacked, influenced negatively by discarnate entities. Now, so first we get into these 7 principles of SASETEM, then we're going to, in general, then we're going to show how they apply to overcoming the negative effects of witchcraft, and then we're going to get into dealing with the ancestral shrine and so forth, and the shrine to the crop. The SASETEM of sleep is the foundation of all that occurs afterwards. Our body and spirit are rejuvenated through the sleep function. It is our means of regeneration. It is so important to our proper development that if we deny our body sleep, our body will ultimately take it from us. We will inevitably collapse. Our consciousness is renewed and our energy is replenished during the sleep state. Of course, if you are disordered when you're engaging and in the sleep state, then you set your compromised immunity, and the kind of dreams you have are invaded by these weak, degenerate entities and so forth. But the SASETEM of sleep is the foundation of rejuvenation and replenishment. The SASETEM, or responsibility of diet, is critical to our ability to properly function. Proper nourishment not only energizes our bodies, but it also nourishes our capacity for proper thinking, analyzing, judging, and behavior. Clarity of thought and insight is dependent upon a proper diet. Through diet, we maintain balance in our bodies, and this directly affects the level of balance we experience spiritually. What are you putting in your body? What responsibility are you taking? If you abdicate your responsibility, are you putting things in your body that weaken your spiritual immunity? Are you contributing to these discarnate, wayward entities or negative individuals who would seek to project such negative entities upon you? You're not getting enough sleep to rejuvenate yourself, and so that you can have some vitality, some power, some energy to repel these negative entities, and you're tired and stressed and worn out all the time, then you weaken not only your physical body, but your spiritual immunity. If you're eating the wrong foods or even taking in substances within your physical body, the reason the whites in our spring called alcohol spirit, because the alcohol not only deadens your senses and numbs your senses, weakens your physical immunity, but it also weakens your spiritual immunity, your capacity to sanction thought streaming in from the outside, because your brain is put into a coma, so to speak, by the alcohol. Then the influence of projected thought from other entities, can begin to get into your head, because you're not repelling, you're not sanctioning, you're not analyzing, you're not delineating, you're not discerning, because these quote-unquote spirits, this alcohol, is causing you a problem, causing you to be weak, making your spiritual immunity weak, compromised. Same thing with smoking marijuana, weakens us, destroys us physiologically with regard to our melanin. We did an entire broadcast on the negative effects of alcohol and marijuana and cocaine and other drugs and so forth, weakening our melanin, our abatum, weakening our spiritual immunity, and opening us up to idiocy. So you see people smoking weed, they begin to rationalize stupidity, having all kinds of foolish philosophies, pseudo-spiritual philosophies, pseudo-rationalization, pseudo-scientific philosophies, and hold on to them for dear life and attempt to promote them. All kinds of idiocy, because their mind is destroyed with this substance, with this poison. And they'll rationalize utilizing that poison and come up with all kinds of ridiculous studies by our absolute enemies who seek to eradicate us. They will teach you that there's nothing wrong with doing marijuana, just like crackers are now teaching you that there's really nothing wrong with heroin or drugs, as long as you use cocaine and so forth, as long as you use them in moderation. They know specifically that melanin-dominant people suffer and get hooked quicker and stay hooked longer to these drugs than any other group, because of our high melanin content and the way drugs bind with the melanin molecule. So they know it's much more destructive for us, much more thoroughly destructive for us. It saturates our entire physical bodies when we engage in drug use and so forth. So since they know that, they make the drugs widely available, and then they float these little studies and put out little, PhDs and so forth to go around influencing ignorant Negroes to talk about, well, actually, if you use drugs in moderation, it's really not a problem. Or actually, there are no studies that talk about the negative effects of marijuana. So clowns will run around and say that there's nothing wrong with marijuana because they're drug addicts. They're no different than a heroin addict. They're no different than a cocaine addict. They are a drug addict. Just like an alcoholic, someone smoked up on marijuana and so forth, making foolish rationalizations because their brain cells have been numbed by this chemical. And then they open themselves up to these criminal, discarnate spirits that seek to do them and control their thought processes and stream foolish ideas, and then they hold on to these foolish ideas. So when you're putting negative foods or chemicals and so forth, you weaken your physical body, but you also take down your spiritual immunity, and now you begin to contribute to a situation where you will allow your spiritual immunity to drop, and the capacity for someone who's engaged in lower level witchcraft and so forth, they have the capacity to influence you. So again, we're talking about SASETEM responsibility. So we talked about sleep, regeneration, the foundational principle of establishing that physical responsibility, the foundational principle of that. Then we talked about diet. That's the next piece, to fuel yourself. First, you have to regenerate yourself through sleep. Then you need to fuel yourself, nourish yourself, give yourself the vitamins and minerals you need for that kind of vitality. And then the third principle is exercise. Aakhuamuman, exercise. So first it was sleep, regeneration, diet, what you're putting into your system, and then exercise is the third of the SASETEM responsibility. The SASETEM of exercise is the third of the physical SASETEM. Exercise enables us to tone our physical body, that it may serve as an instrument, a tuning fork, to harmonize us and our activities with the harmonious vibrations, energy streaming from our Okra, our soul, our divine consciousness. These harmonious vibrations are the message of the Nkrabi. So what does that mean? You have a divinity dwelling in your head region. That force in nature dwelling in your head region, your own personal divinity, your soul, your divine consciousness. In Akhan, called the Okra for males, Okra for the female, Ka and Kai in ancient Kemet, the Ori in the Yoruba tradition, the Sebido and Vodun, a deity dwelling in your head region, a male divinity, if male or female, divinity if female, will feel that force pulling you in the direction of divine order on a consistent basis. Sometimes you feel your head or your first mind, that force pulling you in one direction, you go in the other direction. And then you say later on, something told me I should have went in this direction. You can feel that force in your head moving you towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with divine order. The reason why that divinity in your head region, and when you develop a relationship with that divinity, you can begin to communicate with that divinity just like you communicate with other divinities, another ancestral spirit, speaking to that divinity, and it speaks back to you in our ancestral language. Those sacred sound vibrations transmitting that communication. The reason why that force in nature will pull you in a specific direction, in specific circumstances, is based on what is encoded within that divinity, your divine function. That deity knows what your function is and leads you towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with your function. So when you engage that process, when you tone your body, not just to be, yes, to be strong, yes, to be in good health, but to be in good health, Akhuamuman in Akhan culture, Akhun means self or body, and Den means hard. So Akhuamuman, meaning strength, but also meaning health, literally means hard body. The hard body is indicative of strength, indicative of health. So when we talk about exercise, relating that to Akhuamuman, a hard body is talking about a toned body, but not just aesthetic, not just to feel good, but a tuning fork. You have a tuning fork, when you make it oscillate and it begins to generate sounds and so forth, you align yourself with those sounds. You put another tuning fork near it, it begins to make that tuning fork oscillate as well. String, and you pluck it, and it resonates and reverberates specific sound vibrations depending on the length of the string and so forth. When we tune ourselves and tone our bodies become an instrument, a tuning fork for the energy of the Okra. Okra was the soul, the divine consciousness. Those vibrations coming from that deity in your head region, attuning you or aligning you to your divine function. You tone your body, you tune your body, you make it strong, you make it hard, powerful. So yes, for self-defense, yes, for your health and so forth, but to attune yourself to your cry, to make yourself a tuning fork, to make yourself an instrument to align with those vibrations, those messages coming from your cry, your divine function. This is what we're dealing with. If you do not do that, of course, you not only become physically weak, muscles become flaccid and so forth, but then you set yourself up for compromised immunity. When you have your immunity compromised, then you set yourself up for influence that otherwise you could repel. Fourth principle of Asediye is the Asediye, or responsibility of meditation study. It calls for focused observation. We call Susu or Susu Hon in the Akhan tradition. Meditation, focused observation. Meditation is a ritual means by which we redirect the focus of our consciousness. We redirect the focus of our consciousness to our Nkrabia, our divine function. We learn what our function in life is. We attune to the divinity in our head region to learn, pull down like a pull-down menu on a computer. What is our divine function? What kind of energy have we been given to execute in the world, or given to execute our function in the world? How are we to operate? How are we not to operate? What do we incorporate into our lives? What do we reject? Who and what to accept, be in love or law with? Who and what to hate or reject? Focused observation, learning our function. When we direct the focus of our consciousness to the unique structure of our spirit, we learn the specific means by which we must develop our spiritual capacity, our potential and talent, awareness and intuition, receptivity and retention, defensive and offensive power, intellect, judgment, creativity, and wisdom. When we engage in focused observation of things, entities, or events in the world, we learn how the various things, entities, and or events could positively or negatively inform and influence our expression of our talents in life. And therefore, with that focused observation on who we are, what our divine function is, that focused observation on cultivating our talents and our abilities, physical and spiritual, our focused observation on things, objects, deeds, and entities and events in creation. Once we incorporate that, then we can learn how to make proper decisions, how we should operate. Once we focused our observation on certain events, how do we negotiate these events? Focused our observation on certain things, objects, deeds, and entities, how do we interact with them, or how do we repel them? Because we have focused observation, knowing what is in harmony with our function, what is not in harmony with our function, who we should interact with, who we should not interact with. That is our responsibility, our divine obligation, just in general, just to live our lives in a harmonious way. Again, on the other side, we're dealing with what we're talking about tonight, the ramifications of not engaging in focused observation on a regular basis, not being focused, not focusing every thought, intention, and action, and harmonizing each with divine order. When we talk about manhood and womanhood, we have our book, Oberima Afurakanu Manhood, and the upcoming publication on Afuraitkaitnut Womanhood, the 7 principal values of manhood. And we talk about the 4th principal value being respect, to respect or review, because to spect is to look or view. So respect is to review in the real sense, in the Afuraitkaitnut sense. The 4th principle of manhood, to respect or review every thought, intention, and action, and harmonize each with divine order. That is our responsibility as men, and the same thing with women. That's the difference between adulthood and childhood. If you're living in the adulthood as opposed to living in the childhood, then you're respecting or reviewing every one of your thoughts, intentions, and actions throughout the course of your life to harmonize each with divine order, to ascribe the value of divine order to every thought, intention, and action. That is the foundation of maturity. Proper judgment is the hallmark of maturity, and you get to proper judgment by recognizing every thought, intention, and action and where they fit on the scale of divine order. And if they're out of harmony with order, you reject them and you engage proper thoughts, intentions, and actions. So focused observation is our responsibility as adults. It's our responsibility as children, but also as adults. Consistent as adults. If we abdicate that responsibility, then we make bad judgments. We don't see that when certain thoughts are projected upon us, certain entities are sent towards us, and certain influences we're feeling, and then we just assume, oh, that must be how I feel, that must be me, or whatever, and then you move in that direction because you don't have focused observation. You've abdicated that responsibility. If you had focused observation, focusing your thoughts on your own craft, aligning, respecting, and reviewing every thought, intention, and action, you will recognize, wait a minute, this set of thoughts just entered my head, this overwhelming desire I have to move in a certain direction that will actually get me killed or turn down this block when people are about to rob people on this block and so forth. Somebody is pushing me in this direction because this is not a natural thought that's generated from within myself. I'm being influenced. If somebody had a bullhorn and started yelling into the bullhorn directly into your window for you to go jump out the window and kill yourself, you would know somebody is trying to influence you to kill yourself. But if it's a discarnate spirit projecting such thoughts, or some spiritualist, some criminal spiritualist projecting such thoughts powered by the energy, lower level electromagnetic energy of certain herbs, certain plants, and so forth, and you feel a burst of energy and an infusion of thoughts to go kill yourself on a consistent basis, then you're walking around thinking, why am I feeling suicidal? There must be something wrong with me. I must be depressed. And you're trying to take medications and going to therapists or going to some ritualists and so forth to try to find out what's wrong. And if they don't know what they're doing, they're giving you medication and everything else, or herbs and so forth that are ineffective. If you were focused in your observation, you would know, wait a minute, these are not my own thoughts. This is coming from somebody else. And you begin to repel them, reject them, because you are increasing your spiritual immunity once again. The next, ascetiate, to refine. The responsibility to refine. It is the imperative to perfect our craft. Just as your liver is designed and comes into being in order to execute a series of functions for the benefit of your body consistently, efficiently, and brilliantly without fail, so must we come to the intelligence, which obligates us to refine the manner in which we utilize our talent. We are directed. Some people can have raw talent and raw energy and strength and so forth, but we must refine our talent. That's our obligation. It's not an option. That's your obligation as an adult, beginning in childhood and completed in adulthood. We must come to the intelligence which obligates us to refine the manner in which we utilize our talent. We are directed by this ascetiae to discharge our specified duties as unique selves within the great divine body of Nyame wa Nyame, Aminet Amen, consistently, efficiently, and brilliantly without fail, thus manifesting intelligence in the process. If we do not seek to refine our spiritual energy, capacity, refine our talent, if we abdicate that role, then someone else who's refined certain talents on a lower level, but then they use their lower level energy in a negative fashion. We haven't refined ourselves, we haven't perfected ourselves, we haven't strengthened ourselves, so it's hard for us to repel or even recognize when something is going on, being projected upon us. Or if we recognize it, we're at a loss of what to do about it because we have not been refining ourselves. We have not respected or reviewed every thought, intention, and action and harmonized each with divine order, but we have also not refined ourselves and perfected ourselves and perfected our spiritual capacity. We haven't engaged in ritual practice to fine-tune our spiritual energy, our capacity for clairvoyance, our capacity for clairaudience, our capacity to align with the Abayisem that are connected to our blood circle, our capacity to align with our Insamako connected to our blood circle and so forth. We haven't refined that. We've just abdicated that. We're just sitting around watching television, eating, overeating, drinking, and everything else, and not refining our spiritual potential, our capacity. So somebody else is doing something on a lower level, and it seems like they're really advanced because we're doing nothing. But in reality, if we did something, the little nonsense that they were doing is tiny compared to what we have the capacity to do. And again, that goes to the weakening of the spiritual immunity. And when we go, we should also mention when we talk about the ascetiae of meditation, focused observation, and if we do not engage that process and we don't respect or review every thought, intention, and action to harmonize each with divine order, and then after that we do not refine our capacity, refine our talent, perfect ourselves and perfect our craft, which is a responsibility, a divine obligation, then other people's projection, even though they are weaker, they have a greater influence. And when they have a greater influence, and they seem strong, and they seem powerful simply because we're not doing anything, just like somebody who doesn't work out, somebody who goes to the gym and can bench press 100 pounds, they seem very strong if you can only bench press 50 because you don't work out and they've been working out for a few months. But in reality, if you have been working out for the past couple of years, you could bench 400 pounds, and 100 is nothing. That's a weakling in reality. But simply because you have been doing absolutely nothing, the weak person who's only doing 100 pounds seems like a bodybuilder compared to you. So you think that they're more powerful. And if you believe that they're more powerful just by nature and just because they have this capacity, and you believe that you're weak just because you've abdicated your responsibility to refine your craft, and you haven't focused your observation, you feel these influences coming from the individual. Spiritually, you feel this power coming from another individual, a spiritualist who seems to be projecting negative energy, projecting discarnate spirits towards you, projecting all kinds of influences, and you haven't been refining yourself, you haven't been cultivating yourself, you haven't been fine-tuning yourself, you haven't focused your observation, then you will believe that they have some great power that you do not have. And as soon as you believe that, then you fall into ehun, which is a term for fear in the Akhan language, which is a corruption of ohun, which is knowledge. You have knowledge, perception, intelligence, as we just talked about. You have who means to perceive, just like who in ancient Kemet, the divinity dealing with perception. Who in Akhan means to perceive, to see. Ohu means that which is seen, knowledge, wisdom, and so forth. But if you fall from Ohu, properly perceiving and understanding something, to Ehun, which is fear, and fear is really the lack of perception, lack of seeing what's really going on, and therefore you have fear, nervousness, recalcitrance and so forth. Ohu being corrupted into Ehu, knowledge being corrupted into fear, and then you don't know how to operate. And then when you don't know how to operate because you're operating out of Ehu, fear, instead of Ohu, knowledge, then you can be controlled because you're paralyzed by that fear. You don't know how to exercise your energy output and crush these individuals. You become fearful and you become paralyzed and weak. Paralyzes many people and sets them up again for spiritual immunity being compromised. The next asediye is to build. It is the imperative to utilize our fully developed talent, develop and refine talent, spiritual capacities to express the nature of our Nkrabia through divinely ordered action, behavior, work. So as we said, sleep is first to regenerate yourself, diet to fuel yourself, to give yourself power, energy, vitality, exercise to strengthen yourself physically so you already rejuvenated yourself and nourished yourself and fueled yourself internally. Then exercise, the third responsibility of the physical asediye, empower your physical body, make it a toned instrument for the projections coming from your kra, those vibrations, those messages, and so forth, so you can align with them. Then the fourth principal value, focused observation. You dealt with the physical asediye, now you get into the non-physical asediye, focused observation, meditation, study, susuhon, attuning yourself to what your function in the world is, how to align with that divine function, how everybody else and everything else and every event, every issue fits into or does not fit into that divine function, how to interact with these individual entities and events through focused observation. And once you consistently engage that focused observation, then you have the capacity to begin to refine who you are. You focused your observation, for example, on the nature and structure of your spirit and what your function is. Now that you know who you are and your relationship to other individuals and entities and events, now it is time to refine who you are. You know what your capacities are because you studied yourself through focused observation. Now you refine your talents, refine your spiritual capacity, refine your power, cultivate yourself, perfect yourself, perfect your craft. That's a responsibility. And once you've done that, now you can expend your energy that you have refined to build, execute your function in creation through ordered action, divinely ordered action and work and so forth. If you do not do that, if you do not engage in building upon what you have established, upon the refining that you've done with yourself, you don't utilize that power that you've refined to build and operate in a harmonious way in the world, then you abdicate your responsibility and you let other people who are building or operating in the world to overshadow and overtake what you're doing because you're being weak. And then, once again, they seem like they're dominant simply because they're operating and moving and you're not moving. You're standing still or going backwards, or collapsing or imploding while they're actually moving and they're not even doing anything great. But just the fact that they're moving and you're not, it seems like they're doing so much more than you are. And then if you believe that and you shrink from that, and that causes depression, anxiety, or anger, or fear, then you set yourself up once again for the compromising of your spiritual immunity, allowing them to penetrate your defense. Final asediye responsibility is to explain. Chere, the asediye or responsibility to explain is rooted in the imperative to build. We must properly explain the nature and functionality of what we build, develop, execute to Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, to our people, without profaning the information. Clear articulation of the nature and function of our work establishes its value and the value of adhering to the Nkrabia within the consciousness of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut population. So when you can articulate the nature of the work that you are doing, why you built what you built, clearly without profaning the information, then the people in the community, children and adults, can see the value in what you have built. They can see the value in adhering to their Nkrabia, their divine function, so they can emulate what you've done and build something that is good for them in the community as well. It establishes that value. In this manner, such articulation engenders respect for what is built, expressed, and simultaneously promotes its preservation. and the preservation of the cultural protocol which led to its coming into existence. Because once people value what you have built, because you have been able to articulate the value of what you have built and the nature of aligning with your Nkra and Nkrabia, and this is why you were able to build what you built, and they see the value in that because you clearly articulated that, not only will they respect the process that led you to be able to build, they respect the thing that you have built, they respect the process that led you to that, meaning you aligned with your craft, you went through these various aspects of responsibility, they respect that process even more than they want to seek to incorporate that process within themselves, but it also leads to the preservation of what you have built, because they don't want to see it destroyed because they see value in it now, and the preservation of the protocols culturally and spiritually that led to you building. So the 7 principal values of Asete, they respect that set of 7 principal values. They respect it because they know this is what led to what is being built that benefited the community. So we want to preserve what was built in the community. We want to preserve the cultural protocols that were put in place that led to that awakening within the person so that they could refine themselves and build what they built. Again, if you abdicate that responsibility, the ramifications of that is that you can articulate the value of aligning with your divine function. You can articulate or understand or explain why it's important to refine yourself, to engage in focused observation, to engage in proper diet and sleep and exercise and refining and so forth. You can't articulate that, you don't see its value, so you abdicate the responsibility because you don't see any value in it. When you abdicate your responsibility, you keep yourself in a weak state, you compromise your spiritual immunity, and you set yourself up to be taken advantage of by individuals who are projecting themselves upon you. So as we can see, when we go through these 7 principal values of responsibility, Adai, which is sleep, Ndrian, which is dealing with diet, Ahuaden, which is dealing with exercise, the 3 physical Asete, and then you go to Susu, focused observation, meditation, study, and so forth. Then you go to refining, tree, refining your spiritual capacities, refining yourself, perfecting your craft, and so forth. Then you go to Ba, to build, and then, of course, you go to explain. Chere, to articulate clearly the value of what you built, processes leading up to what you have built, and the value of its preservation. When you embrace these principal values just in general, that's part of our responsibility as adults. And we teach these 7 principal values to youth, and they learn these 7 principal values and can memorize them and know what they mean. They know the 7 principal values are connected to the 7 days of the week. They know sleep, regeneration, diet, exercise, meditation, study, refine, build, explain. They know those 7. They can associate them with the days. They can say them in the tree language. They know the value of each one. That's just living your life in general. But at the same time, this set of 7 principal values can realign you when you recommit yourself to them to begin to build up and rebuild your spiritual immunity. Sleep, regeneration, getting enough sleep to rejuvenate yourself. Eating properly so you can strengthen yourself, so you can have the vitality to repel these negative entities and these Negroes, these criminals, as well as non-Black individuals who would seek to project things on you. You need vitality, you need energy to be able to generate that kind of repulsion. And that goes into exercise, developing your physical body as an instrument to receive the energy of the Abayisem and the Nsamanfo as a tuning fork to reverberate that energy and to align with your own craft. Focused observation, meditation study, Susu. Focused observation on who you are, what your function in the world is, how it is related to every thought, intention, and action, every individual entity or event. When you have that focused observation, you begin to realize somebody is influencing you, somebody's projecting something towards you, somebody's moving towards you, somebody's engaged in negative ritual activity. You can discern the difference, who's who, what is in harmony with order, what is out of harmony with order. Then you refine yourself, build yourself, perfect yourself. You begin to recommit yourself to engage in ritual practice, to strengthen your spirit and so forth, to perfect your own spiritual practices so you can begin to repel these criminal entities. Then you build, you engage in ritual practice to eradicate these entities. And then explain clear articulation, clear articulation to your children, to those connected to you, the processes you engaged in to align yourself with your divine function, understand what your function is, align yourself with your divine soul, your consciousness, your krawa, and so forth, and show how you were able to overcome this negative kind of projection. The means by which you engage in that refining process, perfecting yourself, and then that building process, so it can lead to that explaining process, the refining and the building, refining your spiritual capacity, and then building, engaging the process, engaging the work. Now we're talking about dealing with the Okrawa, the soul, the divine consciousness, dealing with that divinity through ritual practice, and establishing your ancestral shrine. The first line of defense against negative spiritual entities is your ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated. Physically, if you're in a house and somebody tries to break into your house and you fight with them and so forth, you can take them down, or if they have a weapon, it depends on what's going on. But if somebody tries to break in your house and you have 50 family members in there and the person gets in the living room and then they see the 50 family members and then you stomp the person into the ground, kill the person and so forth, you have a line of defense. The same thing is true with regard to your nanano nsamako, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of your direct blood circle who were assigned to you by the Supreme Being to guide you throughout the course of your life. When we align with them and we connect with that line of defense, we disconnect ourselves from them. It's like telling everybody, all the 50 people, get out the house. And if they say, well, we want to stay just in case, you say, no, get out. I just want to watch television and drink and smoke and go to sleep. Then you're setting yourself up to be compromised. When you reconnect with those members of the family and keep them in the home, establish that ancestral shrine, that encombre and semi-encombre, and consistently engage them, then you're aligning and realigning yourself with them. It's no different than a drop of water returning to an ocean connected with the greater body of water and now becomes part of a larger force. No different than a smaller magnet attaching to a large magnet and becoming part of that magnetic field in the same fashion. So you begin to establish a connection with your nsamampo, your nananom nsamampo, your spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. We did an entire broadcast on ancestral shrine communication and liberation, dealing with that whole process of establishing a shrine based on our article, dealing with that basic ancestral shrine setup and so forth. But again, you must deal with these 7 principles of ADEBISA responsibility, which are in reality governed by the Abayisem. They govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies. They govern all cycles on Earth. When you deal with these 7 principal values and recommit yourself to these 7 principal values of ADEBISA responsibility in your spiritual practice, then you strengthen yourself, refine yourself, build yourself, and so forth, so that when you go to the ancestral shrine, you're going to the ancestral shrine open to receive what they have and not controlled and brainwashed with misinformation and fear and ignorance and so forth. You go to your nsamampo open so you're ready to learn. You must recognize first that if you have been compromised, then it's time to go first to the people who have your back. Establish that relationship with the nsamampo, and it must be consistent. Going to the nsamampo one day and then not going for 3 or 4 days or a week, and then going back for 15 minutes and giving them some food, and then not going back for another week, or giving them a little water, or just going to sit and to complain and cry and things like that. These are your nananom nsamampo. Just like if you go and work out one day and then don't come back for a week, and then you work out again and don't come back for 3 days and don't work out again and come back 4 days later, and you do that for a whole year, no, you're not going to develop any muscle mass at all. And you can say, well, I've been working out for a year, but I haven't developed any muscle mass. Nothing is happening. This working out is not working for me because clearly I'm not getting big. And look at all these other people. They've been working out for a year as well, or some only 6 months, and they see results, and I don't see anything, and I've been coming for a year, but you have not been consistent. Because you haven't been consistent, you haven't strengthened yourself, you haven't built yourself. If you don't maintain these lines of communication with your Nsamafo and you separate yourself from them because you are not consistent, then the direction they have to give you, it falls on deaf ears because you're not being receptive. You're being receptive to other things. So you have to take responsibility. And you have to be honest. Because at some point, when you go before that NHOMA, that ancestral shrine, all the mythology that you've created around yourself for other people, as though you're responsible and you're spiritual and you're dedicated and you're doing this and you're doing that and you're really sincere and you don't understand why this, all of that mythology means nothing when you sit before the Nsamafo because they know what's going on for real inside of your spirit, your Sunsum. So they understand that's all nonsense. That's all defense mechanisms you created for other people, but that has no basis in reality and has nothing to do with what's going on in the real sense. You must shed all of that nonsense and get back to reality. That is your obligation. That's why we deal first with asediye, responsibility, obligation. Be an adult. Then you go before your Nsamafo, you have to strip all that nonsense away and be consistent. And when you're consistent and receptive to be open to what they have to give, certain things you're going to have to leave alone, certain kinds of activities, behaviors, foolish beliefs that you've incorporated and so forth, all these things that are leading to the compromising of your immunity, the Nsamafo will show you those things. And then you begin to build yourself, refine yourself, and so forth, and then you can move forward. You engage in that ritual practice, and at the same time, just like we had the whole broadcast on the NHOMA Ancestral Shrine Communication, then we also have the broadcast on soul responsibility, talking about ritual to the Krawa, the soul divine consciousness, aligning yourself with the divinity in your head region through that ritual practice as well. So we did a whole broadcast on that. The broadcast on NHOMA Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation, and the broadcast on soul responsibility, Okra ritual to order life. Those two dealing with the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, and the Kra, the soul, the divine consciousness, the Krawa. Those together in concert are the two that repel these negative entities. The vast majority, 99.99+% of individuals who are really affected by so-called lower-level witchcraft are dealing with individuals who are projecting negative energy, thoughts, projections, influences towards a certain individual, or they're utilizing some wayward, criminal, drunkard, weak, crackhead-type, discarnate spirit and directing them towards in your direction to influence you in a negative way. But as soon as you engage the asediye process, responsibility process, in concert with connecting with your Nsamafo, consistently and sincerely being receptive to them and not having your own agenda when you go to the shrine and saying what you want to do, even if it's in conflict with what they are directing you to let go of. When you engage that process sincerely and full of receptivity, then you can knock out this nonsense that these criminals are projecting towards you. And you can thwart their efforts because the Nsamafo will be your first line of defense. And your own Kra is a divinity in and of itself, and it can repel these negative projections. So that's the key. Every now and then, somebody, just like the vast majority of illnesses that people have throughout the course of your life, most people are not, when they get sick, from the time you're a child to the time you're an elder, the vast majority of the time that you come down with some kind of illness, you do not go and get surgery. You take care of that illness. If you know about illnesses, the vast majority of people take care of their illness at home and they recover and so forth. They know what to take, or they may not know what's the best thing to take. They take something and they get over it. Or if it's something, or sometimes they'll go to a doctor, go to a physician, get some pharmaceutical medication. If they go to a naturopathic physician, they'll get something natural, it's more intelligent. Every now and then, which is very rare, somebody may have to go for some major surgery. That is very unusual. It's not common. Maybe once in the course of somebody's life, or twice, which is more unusual. The same thing occurs with these spiritual issues. The vast majority of these negative projections, negative lower-level witchcraft and so forth, is taken care of by your own ascetiate, adhering to your ascetiate 7 principal values of ascetiate responsibility in concert with your NHOMA and Samafo, and to cry your soul, your divine consciousness. Every now and then, somebody is engaged in intensive projections, negative things, and then you connect with a spiritualist from your blood circle who are connected to you, who specializes in repelling such entities, just like a neurosurgeon. But that is very rare. If that is the case, then you are led by your Nsamafo to that kind of individual. If that's the kind of entity that you or individual that you need to interact with, that you're in Nsamafo, and of course in concert with your Krawa, direct you to such an individual. There are many individuals, the majority of individuals who claim to be priests and priestesses, initiated and so forth, and asking for all this money and everything, who really don't know what they're doing, really don't have that kind of power connected to the Orisha, Abosom, and so forth, and they're just, getting money from people and telling them to do this and do that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because the vast majority of the time, as we said, 99+% of these lower level entities that are dealing with people is no different than lower level bacteria. The most basic projections that you engage with your Nsamafo to utilize to repel these entities, repel them. So whether you went to a priest or priestess or you did not and you just went to your Nsamafo, it still would have repelled. If you don't know that, and some priest or priestess tells you that you must come to us and this is why you're suffering and the reason why you keep suffering is because of this and you have to come to us, all this nonsense, and you believe that out of Ehu, they're advocating your Ohu, your knowledge, then you go, they do something very basic, or even sometimes an entity sees that you're about to just decide to do something about what they're doing, and they decide, I'm just going to leave this person alone because they're no longer going to pay attention. Even before the so-called priest does a ritual, the entity, just like a homeless person, if they're constantly yelling at people walking by the street and walking up on people and yelling and so forth, and they're able to get away with it because most people just walk away, they'll keep doing it. As soon as somebody stops, turns around, gets up in the face like they're about to knock them the hell out, then they back down and say, okay, well, you know what, let me leave this corner because it's getting dangerous for me. Let me go somewhere else. The person didn't even punch them. But they showed them that if they continue, they're about to crush them. So that forces them to back up because they know they no longer have any influence. The only reason they had some influence because some people were neglectful, some people were just aloof, and some people were a little bit nervous or afraid of them. But as soon as somebody showed they didn't have any fear, forced them to back up because in reality, the little weak homeless person really didn't have any power anyway. It's the same thing when they die. Such spirits are used by criminal spiritualists to go towards somebody and project all kinds of negativity and intimidate and so forth. As soon as you turn around and face them and project some energy towards them, they know they will not be able to influence you, and they typically back off because they know they have no control over you whatsoever. Only time some weak little spirit has control over you is if you are compromising yourself. Just like the only time some little bacteria has control over you, you begin to compromise yourself. And the criminal spiritualists can see when you have compromised yourself, and they see an opening. And then they send a spirit towards you, and then it appears that something has overpowered you. In reality, you had some chink in the armor from the beginning, or else they wouldn't have been able to do what they did. So that's why ascetiate is key. Now, every now and then, as we said, it may be someone who's constantly criminally, they don't care no matter what, even if they know they're not going to be successful, they're going to keep coming after you anyway. Some homeless person may be mentally ill, and even though they see you flex towards them, or even say walk up on a dog and the dog is barking, they keep running towards the dog. Now, they're going to get eaten up by the dog, but they're so out of it, they'll just run after him anyway and get attacked and get bitten, have to go to the hospital and so forth. You have some quote-unquote mentally ill, spiritually discordant spirits as well who, even though you project some energy towards them on a basic level, they'll still keep coming after you even though they're really not that powerful. And once you realize your initial efforts didn't repel them, and if you have not completed your own refining, your own spiritual development, your own crafting and refining and perfecting yourself, because you had weakened your spiritual immunity and you need a stopgap measure at this particular time while you're in the midst of repairing yourself, then your Nsamafo can lead you to someone connected to your blood circle, whether it's closely connected or distantly connected, who's engaged in ritual practice in an authentic fashion to engage in ritual practice on your behalf as well to neutralize these weak little spirits. So again, that's less than 1/100th of a percentage of the time. Okay, so we went through all the information that we wanted really to get to. So if you have a question or comment on the phone line, hit the number 1. And of course, if you're in the chat room, you can comment in the chat room if you have a username. You can sign up for a username very quickly in Blog Talk if you don't have a username. And we're just going through the chat room right quick. Give me a second real quick. Going through the chat room to make sure there were no questions. So again, that section we were reading from is from the Ptah SASETEM publication, and we'll put the link in the chat room right quick for that. All right, and so that you'll see that on the NHOMA page. The key here, once again, is very often when you hear people talk about lower level witchcraft and so forth, the first thing they want to talk about is who can you go to, who do you spend some money with, who do you go get to get this person off you or get this somebody off of you. And you can always relate the spirit realm. They're always parallels in the physical realm. If some little weak entity, individual tried to come up on you, the first thing you're going to think is not to go figure out somebody you can pay to go beat this person up. You're going to crush this person yourself. Or at most, you get some family members or people who are connected to you because this individual is being sent towards you, and they will destroy, you in concert with them will destroy this individual as well. So that's the parallel. And the same thing spiritually. You deal with that. You can deal with that yourself, but through ascetier responsibility, realigning yourself, regenerating yourself, and so forth, going through those 7 principal values in alignment with your Nsamafo and your Kra to crush these weak projections. And as we said, sometimes it gets a little bit beyond that, but that's the, of course, minority of cases. So very often people, the first thing they want to do is figure out a way to hustle you into some following their ritual practice, some kind of control they have over you, whether it's money, whether it's influence, whether they want you to join their little Ile or Abosom PA or Humpo or something like that, some little group. They're always trying to figure out a way to exercise some dominion, exercise some control, exercise some economic influence, monetary influence, exercise some doctrinal influence, and so forth. All those things. When you see individuals trying to overtly or even covertly or sometimes even unconsciously trying to lead you into that just because this is what they've been taught, this is what they believe even though it's false, and they project it as though, well, this is real and this is authentic. Your Okra, your soul, your divine consciousness will be repelled by some misinformation, no matter what the person says or who they say they are. All titles and lineages and all of that mean absolutely nothing. If it's not true, it's not true. You don't give a damn about somebody saying they're descended from a line of 1,000 years of priesthood. It means absolutely nothing at all. If what they're saying is not true, it's not true. And your Kra can determine instantly whether it's not true. And you will feel that repulsion within your own head, within your own Kra, your Krawa. Your soul, your divine consciousness. Your Nsamafo will show you whether something is or is not true. Instantly, you'll feel a negative feeling for it. When you have that negative repulsion towards something, you don't let the individual, the so-called priest, the spiritualist, convince you, well, you're just having a Western mindset towards this, and you need to shed that, and this is what you need, and they're trying to convince you. If you're really having a Western mindset that's preventing you from understanding what's happening, you need to connect with your Nsamafo once again and let them show you where your Western mindset is. You know, let somebody else tell you, well, you're just having a Western mindset, so you need to get over here and do what I said do, or else you're going to continue to suffer. A real diviner is not going to give you that kind of conversation. If they're really dealing with something real, they're going to give you what's being said, what's real information. They're going to give it to you and let you deal with it. They're going to let you understand it. They're going to let you grapple with it. They're going to direct you to go to your Nsamafo and confirm whatever they gave you with your Nsamafo. They're going to direct you to go to your own Okra and confirm this with your own Okra. Your own Okra verifies what I said, then you can come back. But if it does not, then don't come back to me. That's what they will tell you. So very often people get hustled in certain directions because they are rooted in ehu, fear. They're not being taught about their responsibility, their own divine power, their own function, their relationship with their Nsamafo, and how 99+% of these issues can be taken care of within the house, within the family, within the clan. They're not being taught that. They're being hustled with money and hustled in another direction. So the key is a steady responsibility. And of course, part of that is dealing with the Nsamafo and Abosa. So, just want to make sure real quick we didn't miss anything. Okay, so we have a question on the phone line. Okay, Michelle on the phone
Hello.
line, number 5466. You had a question or a comment?
Michelle, brother. Hey, I feel you 100%, but I just wanted to bring, I guess, a situation to you. It's my particular situation, and I know I'm not the only one. When you talk about being able to bring these problems to the bloodline, to bring, to ask members of our bloodline, man, I spoke to you a while ago. I don't know if you remember about my grandmother and my grandfather. That's where a lot of that power rested in. And even after their passing, I was able to approach my great aunties and my great uncles. But a lot of the generation after them got polluted in this Western culture very heavily, man. Now, I can honestly say that I've still, even though they passed on, I've been able to, hold my own here. But it's like if you're dealing with a polluted bloodline, and a lot of us that's coming into this, let's call it knowledge, we standing alone, man. We're really standing alone. Like what would you recommend to us besides finding strength in ourselves? And that's what I've been doing. I'm not even going to pretend like that's not the greatest option we have. But besides finding strength in our own, and, like you said, of focusing our observation and meditating and, building our physical strength. And once again, you're 100% right on that. What other options do we have in this war if we're dealing with a polluted bloodline?
Okay, and I understand. I do remember when you talked about your grandparents previously. So now, also, in certain respects, when we mention bloodline, we're talking about, physical people, but also the ancestral blood circle as well. So you have Nsamafo, Nananom Nsamafo. You have spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, recent, but then also ancient. You also have specific Nananom Nsamafo, specific ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, who were assigned to guide you throughout the course of your life before you even incarnated in the womb. Those are the ones, when we go to our ancestral shrine and ask for guidance, it's those ones who were assigned to us when we were a spirit being sent into the womb that were to guide us throughout the course of our lives. That specific class are in our blood circle, and they actually have the capacity and responsibility to guide us. So those are the ones we seek our, most guidance from. Every now and then, you have the grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles who made the transition, who are nice people. They will pop in and give you specific pointers and direction on certain things that are going on within the family and people they know, or certain situations they've been through, to remind you of how to navigate your way through situations. But as far as your spiritual development day to day and throughout life, there's some that were assigned to you before you even came into the womb. And those are the ones we seek for direction and protection and, guidance and so forth. Now, when you talk about most people, the condition we find ourselves in the Western Hemisphere, whether it's North America, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, as well as the brothers and sisters in Europe, who are descendants of those who were forced into enslavement as well. Everybody outside of the continent, descendant of those who were forced into enslavement. We talk about Odwirafo, the purified nation of Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut in the West. We did a 7-part series on that. Instead of using the term diaspora, we properly define ourselves. What we're saying is that, yes, we are in this situation just like our ancestors, those who escaped from enslavement. You had a larger population, remained on the plantation. Some of us escaped from enslavement. So we became Akumfo warriors, it says. We became so-called maroons, outliers, and so forth, setting up independent nations, then coming back to wage war against the plantations, burn them down, and free more people. Those who escaped the plantation had to establish independent nations. At first, they were isolated, but once they developed themselves, they connected with others who were engaged in the same kind of processes, and they built community based on that reality. We are engaged in that maroon process right now with regard to ancestral religion. We have escaped the plantation of Christianity and Islam and Judaism and white culture and pseudo-spirituality and everything else. We've escaped that. So, yes, there will be periods of isolation. But just like those pioneers and pioneeresses who established independent nations outside of the plantations and then went back to free other people from the plantation, at this particular period, some people are isolated, but of course we have different methods to be able to connect and communicate with. When you look on the Ning site that we have, our social media network, the separate social media network, we have put out the call for people, and they have responded to begin to form Nanasom Feku, ancestral religion study groups. And some are formed in New York and Tennessee and New Jersey and Philly and Maryland, and more groups are popping up. We have the recommended curriculum and so forth. These are maroon villages, quote unquote, establishing, coalescing. First, people get the information. Maybe they come in contact with information, publications, some of our 16 books with 60 articles with broadcasts on YouTube or whatever, and they get some information. That's the first thing. And you have some people who are, attuned to the information, but you have some people, the information is the gateway, which is the, key. It is the gateway for people to return to their ancestral religious practice, to begin to align with their own cra, align with their own nsamanfo, NHOMA nsamanfo, and begin to engage and rebuild themselves. And once they begin to engage that process, then they're naturally inclined. That natural inclination for us to engage in interdependent action is awakened. It's already there. We have a natural inclination and propensity to engage one another in an interdependent fashion because we're all part cells within a great divine body. Embracing white culture obliterates that. So we only want to come together for foolishness. But when we get back to normal and realign with our crowd, that natural inclination to not only develop ourselves individually, but also recognize our interdependence upon one another as Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut people, that is awakened. So we have a natural inclination to begin to seek out other individuals who are engaged in the same process. So now we begin to form these Nanasom Feku, ancestral religion study groups, and the outgrowth of those will be schools, businesses, and different things in those different areas, and it begins to expand in that fashion. So in different areas where certain people will be the first one who broke away from the plantation. Some people, they will run into a community who's already broken from the plantation. Depending on where you are and who you are, you may be the one who's the first one, or you may be the second one who came out. You may be the one who leads other people out of the plantation. It just depends on what your situation is. But yes,
it's real funny, man. It's real funny because, I came down here alone, and it's been this strange progression. Like, some people talk about that they are going to come where I'm at because I got land. I live in the country. I got land. And I was actually talking to a Yoruba brother, and he said that a lot. I'm not going to start bragging online, but a lot of what I have is a lot of what a lot of people in the RBG, the conscious community say they want. But me being down here, like I said, I'm by myself for the most part. Ain't no brothers in the country, man. Ain't no brothers down here farming. I got one of my brothers, and we share books. I give him books. Like another thing, like you just had the 16 book set. I bought you 12, I think, before, and to support, I bought the new 16. I had 12 repeats, and I give him books, and but it seemed like he's about a lot of lip service sometimes. You know what I mean? He ain't really, but like you said, some people come into the information, and that's as far as they go. And then, man, my mother's an ordained minister, and, I've never tried to take her outside of her. She's an older woman. I'll be honest, I'm not about to combat moms about, her Jesus. She can keep her Jesus. You know what I mean? That's for her. That's cool. But I talked to her about certain things, like the nature of heaven. And also, like I told you about, seeing our ancestors. And it's something she can't deny because she has those dreams too. So I'm like, when you have these dreams, and when you have these visions, do you see Jesus? No. You see our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, right. It's and that's the only way I approached her with it. I ain't never, if anything, what I did with her, because I wanted her to be able to go to the roots of that Christianity, is I bought her a Septuagint, and I got her a study book of the Pentateuch. So what I did with her, because when you take it back to there with those, and you actually see what happened geographically and chronologically, once again, not about to go into it because that's a very long conversation. It's undeniable.
Hold on 1 second. I want to let people know, if you want to listen beyond 11:30, you have 90 seconds to call in because it will cut off online at 11:30. But if you're on the phone, you can still hear beyond 11:30. So you have about a little bit less than 90 seconds to call in. 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. You got about a little bit over a minute to call in. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, Mom's the other day, she was over here on Wednesday, and she grabbed a couple of your books, man. She was like, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in that. Of course I want to learn about my culture. Of course." And I was looking at her like, good and well that you've been fighting me on this. So it's like you said. You understand what I'm saying is like they'll fight you on it, just like my little sister when I moved down to the country from Chicago. And by the way, I know you from Chicago, and I've always wanted to ask you so bad, what made you leave Chicago and move to D.C.? But pause on that just for 1 second, if you want to answer it. If you don't want to answer it, that's cool. But my little sister was like, why you moved down here to the country? And now, yesterday, it was either yesterday or today, because I got land. She was like, do y'all think about building more houses on the land? I actually told her, my mother, because my mother still rents down here. Mom's is talking about building a house over here. And I told her, for such and such amount of money, which is a lot less than what you could do in Chicago. You already know the Chicago prices. You can get you a brand new house. It's mostly running the water lines and the electricity lines and things like that. So, like you said, they coming around. But, honestly, I just think that maybe I'm just getting a little older and you get tired of fighting that battle. Because it is. It's a battle, man. I feel like, who was it? Was it the on the God? I feel bad about forgetting her name. I want to say Ida B. Wells, but I know it wasn't Rosa Parks. The one with the Underground Railroad, and she was getting the slaves or the prisoners of war, and the ones who wanted to turn around, she got the gun, and she told them, if you turn around, I'm gonna kill you, because if you turn around, you're probably gonna snitch. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Right, Harriet Tubman.
I remember her name. Yeah, Harriet Tubman. Forgive me. But that's what it feel like. It's like y'all know that you suffering under them conditions, but they don't want to come out of it. They don't want to come out of Babylon, to forgive that phrase. But I mean, that's all I wanted to say on that point, man.
It's fear that's been inculcated within them that Ohu, that knowledge, that proper perception has been blunted. And so they have a truncated perception. So the Ohu becomes the Ehu, becomes the fear because they can't understand. They don't know what to expect and so forth because they've been corrupted. So, but what has happened, when you're engaged in practice like this and you're receptive to your Nsamanfo, of course, your Nsamanfo are your relatives Nsamanfo, so it doesn't matter what they say out of their mouths. You're speaking above their head directly to their Kra and their Krawa. You're also speaking to the Nsamanfo who are working on them day in and day out, whether they know it or not. So when they get up and have this urge to get up and say, you know what, I want to look at this book, their Nsamanfo are pushing them. It's an ancestral urge, a mandate. And now they're responding. So you don't even have to fight on that level. You don't have to waste too much time, engaged in, back and forth with certain individuals, family members, or even people online and stuff like that. When you're engaged in ritual practice and you're engaged in that kind of work, then you begin to develop the kind of substance and the kind of weight and the kind of power and the kind of magnetic draw that people see something is going on and they can feel that. So just like we always say, the Oriya, the sun, it has such substance or such weight that it can draw the other planets into its orbit. It doesn't have to solicit the planets to come join the solar system, like passing out flyers or something to come on down to the solar system. It doesn't have to do that because it has weight, it has power. When you engage that ritual practice, you generate that kind of vortex of energy that draws other related people of the blood circle and people who are more distantly related, but still Afurakanu people, they're drawn in your orbit because you're generating that kind of energy. They don't even know why they're drawn into the orbit. They find themselves in certain positions on certain days in certain areas, and they're learning this information or being, reminded of the information they came in contact through you in some way. Sometimes they may want to feel like that they discovered it on their own because if it comes directly from you, then they don't want to hear it coming from you. But if the exact same thing comes from somebody else, then all of a sudden it's like a brand new discovery, like nobody ever said it. And, they could, if they want, if they need to believe that they discovered it themselves, then they can do that too. But, the Nsamanfo are pushing them in those ways, whether they know it or not. So that's a residual effect of even just you doing your own ritual work. It impacts everybody who's connected to your blood circle. No different than we were talking about in part one. Even on the other side, even on the negative side, if somebody, we were talking about Abayisem, and they're talking about people in the blood circle in the master clan, and they're attacking people of the same blood circle because they share the same energy. Or somebody sitting in a room and they're smoking cigarettes, everybody in the room who's breathing the same air is impacted. But if you're doing something positive, connected with your shrine, everybody who's connected to your blood circle, that energy is resonating within you, and as soon as you begin to oscillate, like that tuning fork, wherever they are, they're tuning forks as well on the same frequency as you, because they're from the same blood circle, they begin to oscillate or awaken or become receptive as well. And once they become receptive, then they'll be put in position to receive some information. And they won't even understand why, but it begins to open them up. So you don't even have to really get into too much, back and forth. All you have to do is awaken that information within them, awaken that energy within them, and then put yourself into the position to have the answers when they come to ask for them. So when they have a specific question about, Solomon or Sheba, Menelik, or Yeshua ben Pandera and stuff like that, then the cuckoo tomb is right there to give to them that answers that in detail. And they're like, man, I was just about to ask this, and everything that you gave me answered all the questions before I even got a chance to ask the question. And that's the way books are written to specifically answer those questions that people have before they verbalize them.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you have any other calls. I have one completely different related question, but if you need to go, you can go. What we dealing with right now?
Oh, no, you can go ahead. It's cool.
I had a visitation, and it was some time ago. It was somebody I did not recognize. It was a female. And the first thing I tell you is I know that no one's died on this land. We're the first ones to occupy this land. It's a brand new house. And it wasn't a fearful thing, but it was odd. You know what I mean? I always used to say, this is something I've been dealing with my whole life. That, you know, I hear voices and it would bother me if the voices was wrong, but the voices are usually right. You know what I mean? But I remember, like, I take it back, and I will tell you about a bad situation that happened. It was right after my grandfather passed, and I was doing drugs then, and I was drinking. I was smoking weed, and I was drinking. A lot of stuff you talk about today. You know what I mean? You know, young kid on the South Side. And I heard a bunch of voices talking. I was there in my grandfather's house by myself, you know, feeling sad. And they was like, dude, you weak. You weak. And I never forget, I started working out if it wasn't that day, I started working out like within that very same week to make myself stronger, because it just felt like, you know, it wasn't like somebody in the gym calling me weak. It just felt different to have a spirit tell me I was weak and I needed to get stronger. And I had a visitation. I'll be honest, man, not easy to share, but I'm not a dirty dude, man. I keep the house clean. But this spirit told me I was dirty. And I don't know why this was maybe like a couple months ago. I worked nights, and so I was actually, you know, tired, went to sleep or whatever. And I usually try to, you know, keep myself clean. I do my ablutions, you know, but I don't do them regularly. You know, do you think it was because this spirit wanted to visit me, but I wasn't prepared at that moment? I know that probably came out of left field.
So it's no, but it depends, because it could be. Were they talking about around the specific ritual area? Were they talking about the house? Were they talking about? It
seemed like they were talking about me at that particular moment, like not like I was a bogus dude, but it's just that at that moment, maybe I wasn't prepared for what that spirit was trying to bring me. That's what I interpreted it as.
Well, now, was there anything that you had been neglecting? Any kind of direction, any kind of admonition, any kind of activity that they have been pushing you towards, urging you towards, that you have been procrastinating with or not fulfilling, even though you had initially said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this, you haven't been doing?
Well, I'll be honest and say I just finished building my shrine this week. I had been working on it, but I just finished it, and I'm being spiritually guided to put things there. I had been making my offerings, but I haven't been regular. Like, and I've been told this. It was after I had started making my ritual offerings. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I've been introduced to the gourmet tradition first. And, you know, making your offerings to your ancestors or whatever, the ancestral holy day versus the divine holy day. And basically, once you step through that door, you're really supposed to keep it going. You know what I mean? You can't, like, you know, start making these offerings or invoking or calling on these spirits. You know, and not even really, I don't need anything. You know, I'm a pretty blessed dude. But, you know, just to keep those lines of communication open. But what it might have been, and probably it still be, is a lack of consistency. You know, maybe, and plus a big part of it is I work 7 days on a row. I work 7 days on the row, and then I'm off 7 days in a row. So my days that I'm off, like today, you know what I mean, the house is clean. You know what I mean? Everything is where it's supposed to be. Everything that needed to get done was done. But on my days that I go to work, I get off of work, and I work in 10 to 12-hour shifts, 7 days in a row. Honestly, on those days, everything falls to the wayside. And it was on one of those days that I worked. I had been working like 3 days in a row. I came home and I crashed. And I got a visitation, and it seemed like she had something she wanted to say to me, but she was just like, "Nah, I'm not going there with you right now because you're not ready for it."
Now you said how long ago was that?
This was maybe about 2 months ago.
Okay, now it was 2 months ago, but you said that you just started building your shrine like recently?
I just finished it. I just finished the foundation. I'm building things slowly. I'm putting things there, like I put one of my grandmother's coins there. I'm putting memorabilia there. You know what I mean? Things to, I guess, charge it in the way that I'm being guided to charge it. I'm not following any, particular, none of that incense, because my grandparents actually didn't like incense. Just things that I feel were spiritually charged by them. I'm putting them there.
But now, what had you had when you got the visitation? At that point, what was
up until
at
that point, I didn't have any of it. I had nothing, but you know what I mean. I was making my offerings of food. I was making food offerings at that point.
Where were you making the food offerings at that?
I was making them actually just towards the sun. Even though I don't even know if that's right, but I didn't have a shrine. I didn't have anything set up. I just was, this is here. Like I would leave the food. I would, make my ablutions, say what I had to say over it, and then leave it on the table.
Okay. So, and you can find out from, Nzamafo if this is the case, but it may have been, like, of course, we can communicate with Nzamafo wherever we are because they're connected to us. Our body is their shrine because, your mother and father gave a piece of their, a cell from each of their bodies came to make up your body. So our physical bodies are the shrines of our Nzamafo. They're magnetically drawn to us. But we do set aside a specific space to focus our observation. Once again, the responsibility, the idea of focused observation. And part of that is the focused observation. Set aside something specifically just for that communication, a specific time, a specific space, in a specific manner. That's what we call it in Kombare, in Akhan. So if you hadn't done that at that point, and you still, giving food and so forth, so what was it that had you not moved in the direction of establishing a specific place just for them? For example,
I had not.
And here's an example they gave us a long time ago. Now, if somebody said, I don't have a shrine yet, but I do certain things, or I don't always have time to, go to the shrine every single day. Or just even, it doesn't have to be every day, it just depends on, periodically, whatever schedule you set up. So a shrine is a stationary space where you go before the shrine and you are informed visually, you're informed through sound from the Nzamafo. They show you things, you hear things, and so forth, and you sit in that space and have a focused observation. Now, in that sense, television is a shrine because you turn the television on, you see images that are moving around, there are sounds that inform you, so visually you're informed, audioly you're informed, and it's a stationary space, and if somebody walks in front of the television, you say, get out the way, I'm watching. Or if they talk to you while your show is on or something is on, you tell them, be quiet, I'm trying to listen. So if somebody says, I didn't get a chance to go to the shrine today, but they were watching television, if you can watch that stationary object to get informed by visual, luminous images that are communicating something, surely you can go to the other stationary space and communicate with your Nzamafo, and of course the information coming from them is going to be much more beneficial than what's coming from the television or from a computer. So if you said, I didn't have a chance to set up the shrine, but I did get on the internet today, then they're not entertaining that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, you're right. And this thing radiates peace, man. I'm standing right in front of it now, man. It radiates peace. You know what I mean? I should have did it. It was easy. All I had to do was put a shelf there. And I got a gigantic painting, and I'm building. It seems like it's going to be a work in progress. That's what it really seems like. Is that it's going to be something that's going to be a living altar.
Right.
Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah,
and I honestly think that that's probably what it was.
And you can ask, and you can see if that was part of it. If part of it was because they knew you were already fundamentally in tune, and it was time for you to move in that direction. Because even when you have a physical space like that, it affects your physical body as well. So you give them a physical space, it has an effect on your physical body to help realign you physically, and then they take up residence in that physical space, and then their spirit connects with your spirit. So it's a spirit-spirit communication and a physical-to-physical communication. So it's a balanced, whole communication. So if they knew that even a couple of months ago you were already ready to begin that intensive process, but you abdicated that for a number of weeks, they were like, look, you need to, you know what I'm saying? If you're going to do it, it's time for you to do it. So they will nudge you in that direction and create, some pressure. And you're like, it throws you off like, damn, I need to get in alignment. Something's up. So you can ask them and see if that was it. Also, the other thing I would say, now, was that, you said the Goromanchi, and then you talked about Chicago, so was that the Earth Center that you were connected with?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you know about Naba, and, he died a few years ago. Right, so he was married to a couple of crackers, and there's a lot of other stuff going on with that. So it wasn't
I didn't know that. Thing. I didn't know he was married to a couple of crackers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it was they're charging people a lot of money for, divinations, hundreds of dollars, and a number of different things. There's some pseudo-philosophy mixed in with some other stuff. When people thought he was from the continent and he was Guramachi and so forth, and most people didn't know about that, he started promoting it as though this is the real, this is the culture from ancient Kemet, and he was saying he was the only, true Kemetic priest in America. All this kind of stuff, because I interacted with him before. I wasn't part of his organization, but I had communicated with him before in person on more than one occasion. He was talking about he was the only authentic Kemetic priest in the country, and people didn't know what he knew and all this other stuff. Just a lot of misinformation. So he's talking about nobody could heal the way he could heal and all this other stuff. But then he ended up, dying as a young man. So they didn't have a response to that.
That's what bothered me, man. I've never been able, I'm going to keep it real with you. Number one, I'm not really an internet person, man. I like to talk to people, but I'm down here by myself. That's the biggest thing. But that bothered me. Like, how are you this healer and you died?
Right.
Early. I thought the man got to him. That's what I really thought happened.
You say you thought what?
I thought a COINTELPRO or something like that had got to him.
Oh, no, it was just, they had the gloss to say it was a very rare illness, but in reality, when he was, selling his herbs for exorbitant prices and trying to tell people nobody had the kind of herbs he had and nobody could heal the way he healed and nobody had the kind of divination that he had with the Bayuali divination, all of that. And then he died. I mean, they couldn't heal him. He couldn't heal himself. It was a lot of bogus nonsense. He was dealing with wayward little discarnate spirits and passing them off to spirits. That's all that was going on.
I'll tell you one difference I'm noticing, and I guess this is a proper place to say this, is you are not advocating, you're speaking about a particular culture, but what you continually advocate is people going back to their own bloodlines and figuring out what needs to be done in their own bloodlines. And
right.
That's the truth, and that's a smart thing to do. I can't remember, somebody else mentioned that when it came to the herbs, how like you have different people that are from different bloodlines from different places where like, one group of people might be lactose intolerant, another group of people might be from a bloodline that had cows for hundreds of years. You know what I mean? Or, like you really got to know what's happening in your own bloodline.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, for example, like with Earth, they would try to pretend like, quote unquote, as they would call it, Kemetic spirituality is universal, which is, of course, it is not. Number one, they have all these crackers, getting involved in their organization, which is nonsense. But any group who's talking about quote unquote Kemetic spirituality or African spirituality is universal, they're a fraud from the gate. Because none of these divinities communicate with the white star offspring, never have and never will. They don't possess them. They do not communicate them, period. It's cosmologically impossible. So they don't want you dealing with your own insumafu. They're trying to get you. They don't ask you or direct you, which is a telltale sign if somebody does not first direct you to your own direct blood ancestors and ancestors of your own clan to direct you who you are. If they say, well, no, just, this is the real culture, just come up on earth. Everybody's not Gurumachi. That's a small group compared to, Igbos, like 30 million, Akhan, 20 million, Yoruba, like 30 million, Makongo, and then you have the little Gurumachi people. Some of our people were, from that area. You're not going to tell everybody, including, some Irish people and everybody else, oh, you can all become, that's insane. So when people try to direct you away, and you'll have some Yoruba people try to say, well, everybody can practice Ifa, and that's all it is. You don't have to be concerned about who you are. Just come up. Everybody can come up under Ifa. That's nonsensical. That is the only people who fall into that nonsense are black people, typically in America, because everybody else had some idea of who they are, and that idea that we're just going to forget who we are and just join up under something like a church. Nobody else falls for that nonsense except some of our people, because we felt like we were stripped of who we are. In reality, when we even go back to our own ancestral traditions in North America, we will find that we actually do know who we are when we embrace our tradition. Like we talked about, the Akhan brought voodoo to North America, the Fauna and Envy brought voodoo to North America, the Yoruba brought juju to North America. We still had these traditions unbroken before this whole notion of we have to go to the continent of the Caribbean to get some shrines and come back to America and be the first one to brought the shrine back to America and become a whole messianic nationalist organization. That's unnecessary. We already had the traditions here. So if somebody does not direct you to your Nsamafo first, then you know they're a fraud from the gate.
Yep. I just wish that we could undo what was done, but we can't. So we just got to move forward. That's really what it boils down to. And if I had my way, I actually talked to my wife about this because I know I'm a mixed breed. There's no getting around it. I'm not going to call myself a mutt. I'm not going to call myself a special pedigree, but I'm a mixed breed. But so if I had my way, I would just say, hey, this is our tribe, this is our nation, and that's what I would rather build. That's been something I wanted to do since I was a teenager. And people saw my vision, and it was funny. People see you down the years, and they like, yeah, I remember you used to talk about this and talk about that, and I'm working on it. You know what I mean? And the funny thing about that is having ideas like that will make you take certain beliefs on things. Like I would never leave the household where my children are. You know what I mean? Or I would never leave my wife to raise my children without me. And I would never, it makes you make better decisions. And you compare that to, just to go back to that general Christian belief that no matter what you do, Jesus Christ is going to save you and you're going to go to heaven. And that's actually something I was talking to Miles about. Once again, ordained ministers, like, who's in heaven? They talk about heaven, but when you think about it, like, is it a bunch of people you don't know? Is it just like you and all the stuff you like? Because that's a strange heaven. Like, I would assume that people you know in your life might be there. So if you're doing well, I mean, for me, and I told Miles, I was like, for me, I would rather see people I knew. And for me, my heaven would be having my family and my loved ones and my friends there. So if that's my heaven and I do right by them in real life, then that's going to be heaven anyway. And you compare that to somebody that's out here doing everybody wrong and thinking that they're going to give some deathbed confession to a God of nothing, you know what I mean? Like, it don't make sense. Right. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And like you said, to go back to Naba, I never joined. I never did, but I got his books. And the thing about him is his philosophy opened my eyes up. You know what I mean? I never submitted. Now, I'll tell anybody, I never initiated into anything outside of, unfortunately, being a Baptist from a child. You know what I mean? And I don't believe in that anymore. But I told myself, just like, like gang or something, it is what it is. That's what I got until I create something better. And that's what I'm in the process of right now, is creating something better. And my children,
My oldest daughter is 10, and I told her, like, these are, and I've studied all of these things. I've studied Islam, I've studied Christianity, you know what I mean? And I got what I got through you. You know, I just got finished, you know, I got the, you know, they talk about the Germans and how they study Egyptology. I got all of Nefer's books here. Now, what I am finding is your books, you hit on a lot of information that I'm standing in front of thousands of books right now, man. You know, I got Herodotus' histories, Diodorus, Cecilius. I got freaking Dr. Ben. You know, this is not me back. I got Urugu. I got Muata, Ashby. I got all of them. And so for me to be able to look at your books and say you actually adding something that none of those authors touched on is saying a lot. And so, but basically my point is that I studied these things because I wanted to tell my kids, I'm not telling you that these belief systems is bullshit just because this is what I believe. This is why they're bullshit. This is where they started from. They bit all of their stuff. It's just like they took a pizza that they saw us making, and they was like, oh, that's a nice pizza. We're going to make something that looks like it, but then we're going to burn down your recipe, which is what they did in a lot of the cases. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm not playing games with them on this. You know what I mean? But at the same point, I can't take back what was done to my bloodline, man. I really can't. I can't take back. Like I talked to my father's relatives. You know, we got murders on that side of the family. I know. I'm born on the Thursday. Hey, Ru, you already know. You know, I've always had an anger issue. You know what I mean? But fortunately, I've been able to direct it. I always have been loyal. When I was on the south side of Chicago, I was loyal to certain things until those things became disloyal to me. And when you talk about the Insamafo guiding you and I don't know the words well, man, the indwelling spirit, and bro, they had to push me. They had to push me out of the gangs, man. They had to push me. I was fighting to stay in the wrong situation. I got my lumps and I got out of there. Do you understand what I'm saying without me being explicit?
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, man. If being 35 and being where I'm at in the country and being so far away from the corner and the Blackstones, my best friend from childhood is locked up for murder. Most of them dudes is murderers, man, where I'm from. But so the question became, we got these bloodlines that's soldiers, but like you talk about focused observation, we got this in our bloodline, but who are we killing?
Right.
We don't know who to love no more. We don't know who that divine hate that you write about, that divine love. We don't know who to feel those things for anymore. You know what I mean? I had something guiding me. I had my family, I had my loved ones, and they showed me that point, and through that I learned about the other side. You know, but at the same point, you know, through betrayal I learned that everybody don't love you and you gotta take a discrepant eye. So now I didn't join Naba El Mosa Moy Denabig's organization, but I definitely took the lessons that he gave. You know what I mean? You know, he was a griot. He brought what he brought. But like you said, and it wasn't even a key what day for. It was a fact. You got all these Asian people in, and these Indians, man, and like, come on, man. Everybody ain't, no. You know?
Right. And plus, it's you know, the thing is, the way that the people will hook people is to start talking about, you know, authentic philosophy and stories from the continent, and you know, breaking some stories down with some cosmology woven into the stories and things like that, and then they can make a couple of little associations to come at and talk about a little bit, you know, some Medutu and stuff like that, and it looks like it's real. That's what hooks people. But then the undergirding, you know, thrust and agenda is a totally different agenda. But now the key with respect to when you talked about blood circle and lineage, remember when you look on our UAB-ODWIRA page, and that second principle, and we're going to deal with it as a matter of fact, next week, it's coming up on the 7-day Odwira New Year's celebration. The second principle of UAB-ODWIRA is Wotumi Fra Moja, and so Wotumi Fra Okra. Okra, which means you can mix blood, but you cannot mix the soul. You cannot mix the krawa. So there's no such thing in reality of being a mixed breed per se. You can have physiologically something happen within the blood circle, but your spirit would consume. If you were living in Mali, and if you were, Mindi speaking person, previous to the enslavement process, and some of your people were enslaved, or you got caught up in enslavement and so forth, you either died on the continent or you died in the Western Hemisphere, and your descendants, you were watching them develop and grow up generation after generation, and you're an ancestor in the ancestral realm, and you're watching your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren grow up, and some of them mixing with other people, some of them get caught up, some of them get raped and so forth, and the blood circles are polluted. At some point, one of your great-great-great-great-great-granddaughters is ready to grow up, and, grows up and is ready to get married and so forth, and she draws you back into the womb. When you come through that womb and are born 40 weeks later, yes, your physical body will reflect the blood mixture, but you're the same Mindi-speaking spirit connected to the same master plan and catcher plan divinities. The blood may be mixed, but the souls cannot be mixed. There's no such thing in that sense of a mixed Afuraitkaitnut person. You're the same individual who has returned through your blood circle. So the light brown skin, as we say, is just a scar. It's evidence that violence took place, but it's also evidence that the melanin won the physiological battle, or else you would be a melanin recessive. So just like a scar you see on your arm, you say, oh, I remember when I got that scar. It's evidence that violence took place, but it's also evidence that the body healed itself. When we see light brown, skins, it's evidence that violence took place in the family blood circle because of the wars with the whites and their offspring over centuries. But it's also evidence that the melanin won the physiological battle. And it's also a sign to never engage in that process again. And it's a sign of what can possibly happen when we do not embrace our culture. So, but the blood can be mixed with the soul, is not. So when you were talking about establishing or reestablishing your clan, your group, you can reestablish that because you're the same spirit that is returned.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Because, man, that's really what I'm on. You just don't know. Because, I'm pretty sure you do, man. You're a brother living in America, man, and a lot of us are suffering, man. In a lot of places of America, it's akin to a civil war. In other places, like where I'm at, it's peaceful. But I can tell, people look at us like they don't know what to expect, Yeah. And it's time for us to come together. We could talk about these organizations all day. We could talk about the Moors. I've studied Moorish history, and what's interesting about them is when you get into Moorish history, it all goes back to clans, because they talk about how the Moors' army was Mandingo. It was Monday. So basically, that title Moor was just talking about people of a certain skin hue, just like this whole Negro thing. You know what I mean? They might not consider it that way because they say the Moors ruled Spain and it has more of a positive connotation, but it goes back to the clan or the barbar. How I had a Moor brother break that down, how the Greeks didn't understand what the brothers were saying, so they was like, oh, they speaking that barbar, and they started calling them the barbar people, the Barbary Coast. So you had all of these different types of people that was from different clans that all of a sudden started being called Moors. You know what I mean? Well,
the white offspring started using the term Moor, but check out one of the 16 books is Moor means dead. So we break down the etymological origin of the term Moor, showing it means dead going back thousands of years to ancient Kemet. In the Medusa,
I read that, and I read it, but it's difficult for me to believe that the Greeks were that smart.
No, they just repeated the same term. Like they didn't create anything. They just repeated the same term, just like, for example, the term hero. Like Whites and Offspring just kept using the term hero. It comes from heru. Phonetically, heru is hero, but then conceptually, the hero is the one who saves and delivers and so forth. Now, if you ask the European, why does heru or hero mean one who saves or delivers, they can't answer, because all they know is H-E-R-O, that's what it means. You ask our people, we have a whole cosmology with deities with the same name, and his function in creation is to restore order to the kingdom after Osiris. We have a whole cosmology that supports that whole notion of Heru is the one who saves. So they don't understand the cosmology because they didn't birth the term. All they can do is repeat. Oh, hero means the one who saves. It's the same thing with the term more, or mer, or more. They heard the term because it was being used all the time. So they constantly were hearing the term. And when you look at the whole etymology of the term, going through Proto-Indo-European, so forth, mooring a ship and all that kind of stuff, all those associations you'll see exactly coming up with the exact same term. So they would just repeat, like mooring a ship. They don't know why the term moor means to moor a ship. But when you look at the Medusa, it's actually a ship being tied to a post, and it's the term moor. You know what I'm saying? So we got the actual cosmology. And when we talk about the sun setting and someone dying, and that means a person has arrived in port, that's another way of saying somebody died because it was a riverine society and the ships would arrive in port, and then you would tie them to the mooring post so they couldn't float away anymore. And then one of the associations of a ship being moored is a dead body, because a dead body means someone who has arrived in port, and then you fasten them to the ground through burial that they won't be able to, go anywhere anymore. And then inhabitants of the vessel disembark from the ship, and when your body dies, the inhabitant of the vessel disembarks from the boat, the body, and separates the ancestral realm. That whole cosmology is what goes into the term more. The Whites and Offspring don't know any of that. All they know is MR means, dead, and it also means water, and it also means wasteland. They can't tell you why it means that because they don't have the cosmology. We have the cosmology. All they know is this is what it means, and they just repeat it, and that's it. So that's why we had to give the cosmology so people can understand, oh, this is what it really means. They have no clue about what it means. They just know it's associated with, burial, it's associated with wasteland, it's associated with the collection of water, associated with, slavery, affliction, all these negative things. It's also associated with black. And of course, the water would carry the black soil, Osiris' dead body, quote unquote, up to deposit it in the delta so it can fill out, the land. So once the water recedes and the black stuff is there, they knew it was black water, blackness and death and burial and submergence and wasteland and a ship arriving in port. They knew it had all these associations, and bondage and tying and mooring posts and tying to a post and no longer being able to move and affliction and all that. They knew it had these associations, so they used those terms, but they didn't know why.
I need to read that book again.
In fact, on page 14 and 15 is where we show how all those different terms all tie into the cosmology. Like you have 7.
I got it sitting right here. Let me grab it.
Yeah, so check that out. And we got as a matter of fact, when we're talking about, we have some more information coming out that's going to be dealing with the Berbers. We're going to get into some detail about that as well.
I'm looking on page 14. Every year during inundation, the Akwamu were reminded of cosmology when Merit Mehet and Merit Shema presided over the pregnancy/swelling of the body of the river. A large portion of the land was buried or submerged underwater. This was a form of death. The plant life was submerged. The land animals living among the banks retreated. Okay. The land emerged from its submergence, burial, death. The plant life was resurrected. This recalled the story of Asar, the Intoro, who was killed, buried, and resurrected. Ritually, this recalled the notion of initiation being a process
of someone going under, dying to the old self and resurrecting as a new individual with new responsibilities and much more. It also recalled the fact that when men and women were in conflict with regard to their love relationships, the desire, for their significant other manifested as a flood of the rivers of blood in the body to the heart. One's heart would then be submerged, flooded, become heavy with anxiety, would pain them, and he or she would feel like a death has occurred. Love is death. Is the heart would freeze or stop. There may even be a flood or inundation of tears, crying. Resolution of conflict, however, will bring an end to the heavy heart. A rebirth of restoration of balance would occur as the heart would begin to palpitate at its normal rhythm again. The tears would cease, the flood waters would recede. Yeah, these books are packed with so much information.
Yeah, we try to, hit every point. So when you go through it again, you'll see, and that was a culmination of the previous 14 pages where we showed every definition you find in etymological dictionaries for more. Then we show the exact same terms in the Medusa with the exact same meaning. Then we show how they all are related in the cosmology. With the Europeans can't show why these various definitions of the term more and more, why they mean what they mean. They just know this is what it means. But we can show the entire cosmology and how they unfold in every stage. And that was like a culmination of that. So, yeah. So, no, we appreciate the call. We're going to wrap it up now. I don't think we have any more calls on the line. So may I say for that. We appreciate it.
Thank you, man. It's good to hear you back on the air. And we got to keep this going, man. You got to keep the information in rotation.
May I say, definitely. We got a lot more coming out.
All right, peace, brother. I'll talk to you.
All right, thanks. What's up? Okay, so may I say we thank everyone. We thank everyone for tuning into the show. We will be back on tomorrow for Egua Marketplace. We will be posting the business of the week, so be checking that on the website. We will send out a notification for that and for who the guest will be tomorrow. If you check out on the Blog Talk Radio broadcast page, you can click the follow button, follow us on Blog Talk. That way you can be on the list, so when we send out a notification, you'll automatically be notified of all the upcoming broadcasts and who's going to be coming on and so forth. And you can also look on the page for all of the previous 168 broadcast archives. You can download them at any time. Some of them we have also saved as YouTube videos, and you can go to YouTube and check out those videos, as well as other videos where we have used to broadcast on Ustream.tv. We have probably something like 40 of those videos as well. So you can go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to us on YouTube as well. As Odwirafo, we are Odwirafo on Twitter, Odwirafo on Instagram, and then you can check us out on Facebook as Odwirafo, Kwesi, Akhan, Afuraitkaitnut, either one. We also have an Akhan group on Facebook. If you would like to support the work that we are doing, you can go to our publications page. All of our 16 books are free downloads from the ebook versions, but the softcover versions we do sell. They range between $8 and $11. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off as well, so that's an option. And then we also created recently the NHOMA monthly book subscription option, where you can make a monthly donation, like, for example, $15 a month. You can receive at least one book per month. We have 16 books out right now. We have more coming out, so you can receive at least one book per month for the next 16 months, or if you did more than that for the donation, the automatic recurring donation in PayPal will automatically debit, that payment on the same day each month, whether you order for one like $15 or more. So you can receive one or more books per month. However, for however many months you want, you can cancel at any time simply by going in and hitting cancel. So that's a way for you to pace your learning and also support the work that we are doing. We are working to establish our institution, Aakhuamuman. We have a page for that. You'll see that on the website. So, again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast, for checking out the publications and sharing the information and so forth. We will be on tomorrow, and Yebeshiabio, we will meet again. That's it.